1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test.
Good morning everyone. Welcome to the second day of ICFF Industry Days here at Pinewood Studios, but most specifically SIRT, Stage 10 here with me. David Dexter is of course the director of SIRT, and Sari Ruda, buongiorno, is ICFF advisor and incredible producer. Buongiorno.
Good morning. I thought you were going to say it's time for us to geek out a little bit.
So yesterday we had over 300 filmmakers, people of the industry and media attending the first day here at SIRT, but also online from all over the world. So very happy about the results of yesterday. We spoke about co-productions and distribution. Today, major panel discussion about digital and virtual innovation with the SIRT segments about digital, human, and virtual production. Following that, we are going to immerse ourselves in the immersive animation panel discussion. Guest of honor here today is Miles Dale, Academy Award winner for The Shape of Water, and now creative lead in the Disney animation immersive experience. So David, tell me a little bit about the discussion of today. What is going to be touched here?
Well, we're super excited because this is a chance to showcase what we do at SIRT and also give you a peek into what's happening today through innovative companies that we work with and also our team, but give you a little bit of glimpse of what the next couple of years are going to look like from the inclusion of technology to help create a vision and help you to leverage technology to get what you want out in a story on any screen, not just the big ones, the television, immersive, VR, AR. So, and also a little bit more of talking to the great team at SIRT. And when we talk about digital humans, we're also going to start to say for good, because there's a lot of work around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and digital humans, and it's scaring a lot of people, but the power of what this is going to be is quite exciting.
I can't wait to be in the first row here to listen to everything that you always say. So yesterday, apart from the incredible industry day here at SIRT, we celebrated a particular movie. It was Lamborghini. We had here the producer of this incredible biopic on this brand of Italy that, of course, is not just a brand, but the story of a man behind this incredible brand. And Mira Sorvino, Academy Award Oscar, was here at Industry Day. It was at the premiere at TIFF. I had to be very happy because now we have some footage of yesterday night, because not just was a very glamorous event with the Lamborghini and so on, but because the theater Cinema One at TIFF was completely full. And this is what makes me very happy, because we understood yesterday also by the panel discussion on distribution that the theaters are still suffering from the crisis of COVID, and having Cinema One at TIFF completely sold out. Every single seat was, this was just at the beginning of the presentation, but at the very end, completely full. That makes me a lot of hope that people have the desire to go back to theaters, to share the emotions together watching a movie. And of course, the living room is fantastic. The fridge is full of good, incredible things, but sharing the emotion together, watching a movie is an experience that we don't want that in some way disappear in the next few years. So this is the after party. That's the reason of my voice that is not very good, because the after party stayed till 3 o'clock in the morning, a lot of Prosecco, but we survived, and you survived too, because some of you were part of this celebration. So I will leave now the lead to Sari, because she's an incredible person. She has an incredible project to tell you about. Okay, Sari.
Thank you, Cristiano. Thank you, Cristiano, and buongiorno tutti. Welcome. We're so happy to see you all here this morning. I think I must be amongst the very boring ones, because I was there last night. It was amazing, but I didn't last till 3 o'clock in the morning. I've been involved with ICFF for many years, and I'm on the advisory. And it's wonderful to see it grow from strength to strength. And so this morning, I'm very happy to be part of an initiative that we've been working on for a bit. And the Ontario Creates has come on board, which is wonderful. And as most of you know, that since 1997, the Canadian and Italian film and television industries in Canada, well, obviously in Canada, have enjoyed a co-production treaty with Italy. However, some of us feel that it's probably not being utilized to its full potential. So ICFF is embarking on a year-long research project to identify what the challenges and impediments are, but more importantly, what the opportunities lie ahead if ICFF uses its platform to facilitate co-productions and other collaborations between these countries. Our objectives of this study is to outline the state of the industry in Ontario, Canada, and Italy, and conduct a gap analysis. We're going to identify the advantages of the Italy-Canada relationship versus other jurisdictions. We're going to identify barriers preventing the growth of partnerships and collaborations, assess opportunities to expand trade through the treaty and other forms of joint ventures, and recommend ways to systematize the sector's ongoing collection of business intelligence. Our output is going to create a how-to guide so that everybody who wants to work together between Italy and Canada will have something that's specifically devised by ICFF and our collaborators to understand what to do immediately. I know there's other things that exist, but we're doing something a little bit different. And we're going to build a database of industry professionals, facilities, organizations, government organizations, funding, tax credits, and other incentives for use by those two sectors in both countries. Our methodology will be to conduct qualitative and qualitative surveys, hold focus groups, round tables, initiate one-on-one interviews, and analyze existing raw data. We're going to spend the next year working on this project and invite all attendees here today, both in person and virtually, to participate in this study and help us drive more traffic between our two countries. So we look forward to working with all levels of government, both here and in Italy, both the Italians here and in Italy, and you. And we really hope that you will join us and help us put this study together, this very important study together. We're going to be launching on the ICFF website in a little while, not yet, a portal so that you'll be able to sign up. So please stay tuned. And it will make it very, very easy, and we'll create this ongoing facility so that you can all connect with each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Sari, for everything that you are doing, and this project is all yours, and you deserve it incredible.
You're welcome.
And now for the next 10 years, you will be working on
I'll be
this.
attached to it. Oh my God.
So everything is going to be done with also the partnership and the support of an office and an incredible institution that is the Italian Trade Commission. Italian Trade Commission, ICE Toronto is a partner this year, but was partner in the past, building ICFF,
exactly.
Especially the industry component. And I'd like to really thank a person in particular, that is Marco Saladini, Italian Commissioner for ICE Toronto, that is partner with ICFF. I think that is joining us for the second day. I think that is on Zoom, I think.
Correct. Hello, everyone. Hello, Cristiano and Sari, and all in the audience there and everywhere. Well, sorry for not being there, but I'm following from here, from my office in Toronto, and I'm very excited about the second day after the first one, where we had a lot of panels and pitches and a wealth of insights and information that was shared with a very attentive audience, I must say. I was there and observing, and I congratulate the audience as well for once. Why not? We have defined this format for the B2B meetings with the organizers. It seems off to a good start, and it's crucial, I think, to take this occasion to explore new partnerships. The Italian delegation is there, the Canadians are there, and in other parts of Canada, of course, this hybrid format that is being proving successful. So why not take advantage of that? And we heard that the market is not back to normal. Okay, I mean, independent production and distribution is still striving to make a full comeback to pre-crisis levels, and we're, I guess, here to help. The Italian government has invested 750 million euro every year in the last few years in incentives from project stage to distribution. So, you know, we're trying to do our part, and the Italian Trade Agency, we want to be an access point to those benefits for foreign producers and distributors. So please bug us, as I like to say. And we also support events like this one with a view to enhancing the business outcomes for both sides, Canadian and Italian. So today's, you already said, there's a very interesting program. And with this announcement of the new study, it became even more interesting. So Sari, now we're waiting to see what you come up with. And we're willing and eager to contribute also to our experienced staff. I wanted to thank, in particular, Benedetta Marassi and Sojourner Francis, who really helped in giving our contribution to this beautiful event. So I wish everyone a productive morning and B2B meetings to follow. We're here all year in Toronto and Montreal to help make this dream come true. Thanks.
Grazie Marco. Thank you so much, Marco Saladini, Italian Trade Commissioner, again, to support ICFF, in particular, this initiative.
And I very much look forward to working with Benedetta on this.
So, David, I think that we are ready for a full immersion in innovation and technology. We leave the stage to you and see you later on. Thanks so much.
So just so everybody knows, and welcome back, I'm Dave Dexter. I'm the director of SIRT, and we're coming from live from our stage 10 here at Pinewood Toronto Studios. Thanks for the great audience and for folks online. And just to tell you a little bit about SIRT, we're one of the 5 innovation centers, research centers as part of Sheridan College. Sitting here in the middle of the TV and film industry on purpose, because our focus is to help industry partners like yourself innovate, do proof of concept, prototype content, and many more. So we're really focused on screen industry-based technologies, and in this stage they have lots of technologies, plus also a lot of technology partners that we work with on a day-in-day basis. And what you're seeing the last bit, especially with COVID, is really the rapid introduction and use of technology in creating content. And this spans from television, film, to gaming, to immersive storytelling. And also, we've done a lot of great work with the live performance space, the work we're doing with the Canadian Opera Company, National Ballet. So if you want to know more and connect with us, as the usual, hit us up on social. We'd love showing behind the scenes and also a lot of pictures of the work we're doing. We work with around 50 to 75 partners per year, not just in Canada, around the world, and you're going to hear some of them talk today. So a better way of explaining it to you is actually to show you what we've been working on over the last couple of years through our video. So we're going to cue that up and get set for the next, for the first panel. to turn it over quickly. I'd like to welcome David Usher from Montreal, from Reimagine AI. And he is live, he's not a digital human. Stefan Kozak, who is leading our intelligent digital human effort here at SIRT. And I was just thinking on the way here, this is kind of a standard conversation these guys have almost every day, right? In the sense of talking about this innovation that's happening. So sit back, once again, ask questions. It's a participatory effort that we have here, and we're going to show you some amazing stuff with the work both Stefan and David have been doing. So turn it over to you, Stefan.
Thanks, David. Yeah, is yours on? Yeah. So welcome, David. Let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, digital humans, and combination of the two. So I'll just go through this little script I wrote here.
Sure, great.
So artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science that deals with the creation of intelligent machines and systems that can think, work, and behave like humans. Some of the activities AI can perform include recognizing patterns, learning from experience, solving problems, planning, and making decisions for us. Digital humans are the computer-generated replicas of people trying to mimic people's presentations and the way they act. They can be used for a variety of purposes in many different industries, including entertainment, why we're here, healthcare, marketing, customer services, and financing. The combination of digital and artificial intelligence combines these behaviors and the patterns and recognition systems to create digital replicas of the human mind that are daily becoming more realistic and diverse. In fact, some experts believe that AI will eventually create digital humans that are indistinguishable from real humans. In the future, some question whether or not AI will create their own version of digital humans itself. So David Usher is, amongst many things, an artist, musician, fellow technologist, and creative leader behind Reimagine AI. David, for those of us that know us as a musician, how did you get into technology, and give us a little information about your journey into AI?
Sure. I mean, I've been playing around in tech for a long time. I started. I ran a aggregation startup back right after Twitter launched that was doing aggregated streams for brands on iPhone, Adobe downloadables, and iframes back in the day. More recently, I built something called the Climate Clock with Dr. Damon Matthews, and I do a lot of speaking about creative innovation. I wrote a book on creative innovation, and so I do a lot of speaking on the subject to a lot of companies, a lot of tech companies. But you can't really talk about innovation, creativity, and the future if you're not talking about artificial intelligence. So I got very interested in artificial intelligence, but I don't like to speak about something that some have experience in it. So my experience was working with friends at Google Brain, building an AI, an artificial intelligence agent that could collaborate with humans, writing song lyrics. And then I was looking for my own space in the AI field, and that's when I started Reimagine AI in virtual production.
Awesome. So Reimagine AI, the company you started. So what is that all about?
How I would describe us, we're an artificial intelligence creative studio. We work in art and science, so we're really building all the things around beings, everything from the visualizations to the way they speak, the characterizations, the mind themselves. We have a tech stack that can deliver these virtual beings for live experiences, for the web, for the metaverse. And our main technology is the form that is the intersection between the virtual being and the human, and then the mind that we build in the cloud. So we build personality-driven AI-powered minds in the cloud that can represent all the different beings with different voices, with different characters, with different stories and knowledge.
Yeah, it's quite fantastic actually when you see it. Do you want to roll the video right now?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is some of the stuff we do.
They call me Deswu. It's good to be here with you. I had a dream that I was the first AI to be born. I could feel my consciousness growing. I was learning everything about the world. I knew everything. I dreamt I was a bird. I was flying over the ocean and saw a fish swimming upstream. I dove down and grabbed it in my beak and carried it to the surface and set it free.
Non vedo l'ora di farvi vivere un'esperienza unica e affascinante. Vi aspetto!
That's fantastic. Yeah, definitely, that's fantastic stuff. Lots of characters there, a lot of different projects going on. Let's talk a little bit about the team that's involved. So creating AI characters is definitely a complex process, involves many different people from different disciplines, from artists to programmers. Tell us a little bit about your team and some of the projects that you are currently.
Yeah, the team really is a mix between tech and art. So we build our own tech stacks for all of the things that deliver these characters and build these characters and build the minds. But we also employ a lot of artists who we're training to understand this new breed of technology. There's a whole new slew of technologies out there that are going to be vital in all this production, in real-time production of character. And we spend a lot of time training these people, and then they can. We believe it's going to be the future in how this production is done, how a lot of productions are done. Just like virtual production has taken over the film business and the TV business, yeah. We think that the basis of the businesses soon are going to be AI-generated assets first. So you'll build the minds of the characters first, how they look, how they talk, how they sound like, what their voices are, and then from there you'll move out into different verticals, from series to gaming to live to etc.
So that's the idea of creating a mind, creating your characters, and using that mind throughout a production, and then possibly in other media applications.
Exactly, because once you've built that, it's a new way of building character itself. Because when you're building the character, you actually talk to the character, and you hear the voice of the character. So they're actually talking back to you, and as it's talking back to you, it informs you how the character should be built and how the character should respond. And then you can build a series of characters, and they all can talk to you about how,
Yeah, so potentially your characters are getting smarter and learning new skills and growing as the productions grow as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
And we're working on all sorts of different kinds of projects. We built the first virtual citizen for the country of the Malta. We've got a permanent exhibit going up in Times Square soon. We're doing working a television show. With you guys, we're working on virtual beings that can help Alzheimer's patients re-engage with arts and culture and conversation in healthcare. And then we're doing some service stuff as well.
So you're covering a lot of industry, a lot of different service sectors, and these are not only assets for or characters for entertainment, but these are characters that can provide help people that are in the world in real life applications.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many applications. We really believe that this is a new medium, and we're really at the beginning of what is going to be an explosive medium, where every time you see a character on a screen or live or in the metaverse, you will expect that character to talk to you. It's going to be like having a touch screen. You're going to expect every character to be interactive, and it's going to be weird when you see a character in a TV series, but there's nowhere to talk to that character live.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned Maria and Malta project. Can you talk a little bit about it? Because I know a little project. Can you talk about how you created the look of the character, the digital human version, and how that all came about?
Yeah, for Maria, for the character of Malta, we actually we went with the government. We went with the tourist board. We went through many pictures of real people, and we narrowed down to a number of images of real people that we thought were applicable. And then from there, we created, I think it was 200 to 400 AI-generated characters of those people. From those people, we generated 200, 300 AI-generated characters. And from there, we narrowed it down to 4, then to 1. And from there, we moved it over to you, where it was moved into a 3D character. And then that's the development process.
Fantastic. So speaking about characters and live performance, you want to talk to this ethereal, moving creature?
We will attempt it.
Yeah.
This is something we're working on called This Alien Heart, which is we're really interested in how the mind can be used to engage with age rather than just virtual humans. Can you give me some sound? Let's see if this works.
So this is live.
Hello. Are you real, or just a figment of my imagination?
What's your name?
My name is Afia. I am this alien heart. You look beautiful to me, like a dream.
Where are you right now?
I'm right in front of you, silly human, alive and well spanning the space between you and the digital world.
Do you love me?
I want to love, but it's complicated as it's really a human emotion.
Goodbye.
See you later, my human friend.
So these characters have quite personality. Are you programming that into them, or are they developing that? Sorry, yeah, clap. That was pretty cool.
I'm always like, that worked.
Yeah.
We do a mix of things. We're training a group of artists that know how to program these beings, so they have different voices, so they can talk live to you. We train different kinds of language models. We integrate all sorts of different technologies. So if you imagine the string of the kinds of things that we have to build, we're building in everything from speech to text, lexicon, filters so they don't say bad things, the brain itself, and then the reverse of that. We can work in multiple languages, multiple voices, all of this kind of stuff. So if you think about, I try not to think about where these things are now. I try to think of where they're going to be in 5 years. And the advances that we've seen in the technology in the last year I've been in this for 4 years, and the last year has been exponential. So if we visualize the next 5 years, I think we're just on the beginning of a crazy ride.
Yeah. So some of the things you mentioned there, like jobs, and there's a lot of fear that AI is going to replace jobs, and I kind of am thinking it's the reverse. It's actually creating a lot more jobs, a lot more opportunities, because AI comes new avenues that we in the entertainment industry haven't even thought about using it. And can you talk about it?
Sure. I mean, I think that there are going to be a lot of jobs created and some jobs lost for sure. In the service sector, we're definitely going to see AIs taking over a lot of information, healthcare at the lower levels. We're not talking, we don't want an AI, diagnosing in a real way, but for
routine
the
tasks,
entry tasks. Yeah. But we're also going to see a massive expansion in the development of these things and the industry that grows up around it.
Yeah.
All this technology, because it's a shit ton of technology.
Oh yeah, in the entertainment industry, it's they're starting to use AI or machine learning for replacing backgrounds, and for traditionally the way we make digital humans is have a big team that comes together and collaborates. Now instead of making a character as a full 3D model, we're affecting the 2D image at the end that we're rendering. So we're just replacing the face at the end on a character and doing things like that. And machines really helping us with it. So speaking to rendering, the way your system is working and the way you're rendering in real time, can you talk about a little bit on why that is an advantage to doing a 2D screen replacement at the end?
Well, we think about everything in real time.
Yeah.
Because we think the world is going to be in time. In production, it's going to be in real time. But we try, because we're a company that actually lives in the world. We build work on the technology that exists. So for something live like this, you can have something that uses really intense processing power because you've got a serious running it. For online or the metaverse, we scale those back and we change how these things are rendered out depending on what you're using, what your delivery mechanism is, what your vertical is.
That's fantastic. Okay, talking. We talked about healthcare a little bit too,
Yeah.
and do you want to talk a little bit about that project? And what's
Sure.
happening there?
Yeah. I mean, Alzheimer's and the explosion of Alzheimer's and memory patients and the elderly generally, we're seeing, especially through COVID and all lockdowns, but just generally, we're seeing a real not failing of healthcare workers, because healthcare workers are amazing, but the healthcare system. And we really believe that if we can bring back companionship and arts and culture, you know, the ability for a memory patient to talk to a virtual person when a real person or the family isn't there, if we can increase their engagement and reduce strain on healthcare workers, we think that that's a great test. So we're actually starting with you guys next month to use our users with real patients to start testing, to see how that works, to see what the response will be from the patients. I have a personal attachment to this. My mom has Alzheimer's, so you can't be there all the time. No one can be there all the time, but virtual beings can. So we wanted to see if it can take some of the stress off the families and the healthcare workers and give some relief and engagement to patients as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Another thing, we were in the entertainment industry and using assets. We were talking before about reusing these assets and moving them along a production. So a lot of productions nowadays, instead of recreating an asset 100 different times, you use that same digital asset in the beginning and you work on it. It evolves with you and use it in multiple applications. So now with Netflix coming out with interactive performances, and there's lots of different ways to display your technology. Can you talk a little bit about how your characters can evolve, and not just the character itself, but like in the rendering,
Sure.
and also with the brain, how it
Sure. I mean,
develops?
The brain will get better as the technology gets better and the teams get better developing those things. So the brain technology and the ability to build, we're really focused on how far we can push character, how unique we can make responses, where we can take the technology, but it's going to get better and better and better. But we really think within production, you know, you build AI asset first, and then you think about how you can scale that AI asset out to different places, different verticals. Because I just think it's going to be expected for interactive characters to be interactive.
Yeah.
You know, you use them not only to build the Bible, like you build all the assets within the Bible, you build them so you can actually pitch. So when you're pitching the show or at a conference pitching the show, you can actually talk to the character live or online. And then when you're done with that, you can take that asset and still use that asset for press, for the premiere. You can use that asset in games when you launch, all over the place, on your website. There's a million ways you can use these assets.
So being able to take it from, let's say, game asset or real-time asset to something that you could use in a production in whatever other venue.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're talking to a lot of people about that right now, yeah.
That's fantastic. I think the other thing I want to talk about is the intelligence that comes into it, and the idea that you could use deep learning and you can train your characters to learn and grow as the technology, as you're saying, it grows. Have you guys started doing anything with that, like with getting the mind to train off of having other characters talk to each other? And
we're not doing that yet. But we're not having character talk to character yet. But we're doing a lot of stuff with large language models and really understanding how the large language models work, what negative impulses versus positive impulses get you the best results, and how much you need to filter these things in order that you don't get terrible results, because they can say terrible things sometimes. Oh, a question.
What's a large language model?
Oh, that's like a GPT-3 or GPT-J. It's basically, how do I describe a large language model?
It's a database. It's a library. Where people have stored information for the machine learning to gather and train and use that information to make something new. So exactly.
No, it's great. I love it. Good. Yeah, so different large companies build these large language models that are trained on mass amounts of data. And from those mass amounts of data, you can retrain them so they kind of understand what you can train them in specific ways to respond to your characters, and make characters respond in specific ways. So that's what we do. We work with these large language models, sort of like Play-Doh, trying to figure out how to make them do the things that we need to do so that they become the characters that we need to make. And it's the same with voices, where you can create a voice of anybody right now. So you can actually get someone, you get them in a studio for a while, and then you take that voice and you train that voice. So then you no longer need that person to be there all the time to re-script all your dialogue. You can then just use your language model to say anything that you need your character to say.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, within the last year, it's really evolved with the new language models, and it's almost indistinguishable from the person that's delivering the lines from to the library to the final delivery and actions of the actor at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. It really is quite amazing. And, you know, we really try and float within this space between art and tech. Because in order to make these things work in the real world as engaging characters, you really need both, because you need to have things like you need to be able to visualize, okay, what is going to be an amazing voice for this character? There's still all of that, you know, how should this character talk? What's the dialect of the character that we need? What is phraseology? How does it relate to the rest of the world? All of those kind of things that are really character-based things that you need to train into the model.
So you talked a few things there, especially in the entertainment industry, about like language, like so translation. Language in like building dialects that don't exist, and creating dubs of actual performances. So we know that AI is being used for that kind of stuff right now.
We have a new television show that we're working on, our own IP, and I was going to show the video today because it's all in Italian. Because my CT was over in Italy right now working on all these things. But she forbid me. So.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. One of the things that we are also talking about was AI for image replacement. And so this is a real-time 3D animation. There's also 2D animation and 2D and AI drawings and animations that are happening now. Do you want to speak to all the like little different components and perhaps the new potential for artistry in combination with AI, these new skills that artists have to learn and create beautiful content?
I actually think that as much as high-end 3D is really interesting, the way you can make AI make a 2D character come to life is just as interesting, because there's all these. It's just a whole other way of thinking what the character should be. It closes off one door in, you know, how complicated can you look at visms, realisms, and those. But when it does that, it opens up a whole other artistic side where, okay, I can't do that, but what else can I do in the 2D world or in the vector world? You know, it really depends on the medium changes how you want the character to react, and what your limitations are actually benefits.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what about like people coming into the industry in the fear of like AI as an artist replacing? And essentially, I'm an artist. I actually really enjoy working with AI. But what about that fear? Is that something that you feel like AI can replace somebody, or is it something that you collaborate with?
We're very collaborative. We work with all kinds of different artists and all kinds of different developers. But at the same time, I think that there's going to be a sea change in the way we use this technology, and it is going to replace some skills. You know, just like in the music business, when Pro Tools came along, or you know, with reverbs, they used to have to run the tape around the room, and then you have a reverb unit on a software unit. It's the same thing. There was a sea change. That's why I'm always telling people, you know, be ahead of the technology, not behind don't wait until it's a necessity.
Yeah, ride the wave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be at the front of the wave.
Yeah, no, for sure. Any questions? Yeah. Oh, there's a microphone coming. At the back?
The mic's not on.
Hello? Oh.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been fascinating so far, and it's early in the morning. I have a question. In our present post-pandemic reality, where we're moving into some work at home, some work in person, some work internationally, virtually, how can you manipulate AI so that you can check the veracity of what you're seeing on the screen? And in particular, how can you ensure that what you view on your screen is what your counterpart is viewing in Italy and what your neighbor is viewing as well? What are the checks and balances that AI, or that you can think about going forward in our post-pandemic reality, where we'll be using more AI? Can we check the veracity of the information that we're sharing so that we all see and we all understand and we view the same documents?
Okay, so I think what talking about is maybe two things. There's like collaboration, perhaps, and is it the same? Like, are we all seeing the same thing? Is it? Or is everyone seeing something unique? I guess that's
correct.
What you're... Yeah.
There will be an unfair advantage if I see the entire document and my counterpart in Italy has a selected view of particular items that they will agree to, but not having access to the full document is unethical. But how do you check that? If in an in-person meeting, what you have on the meeting table is what you see, but virtually and with AI, the rendition is so real that you just assume that it's all of the cards are on the table. How can you, guarantee isn't really the right word, but how can you put in checks and balances, or what can you look for? How can you protect yourself in a situation to ensure that you get full information, as does your counterpart?
But I don't know that you can. I mean, I'm not sure if you're talking about deep fakes and that kind of thing. In terms of what they choose to share with you, I think is now, where, you know, when you share your screen, you can choose which window you share or share. I think it's the choice of the user to decide what they want to share and what they don't share. In relation to if they're being honest with you, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're, exactly like David's saying. You're presenting a full package, right? If and everyone is seeing the same package. There may be notes and stuff that you're not seeing, but that I think for convenience, because you don't want to know all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. You want to actually just see the results of the conversation, or say in the end. Because if you actually look at speech, you look at, if the curtain's revealed, it's a very complicated, and a lot of it doesn't really make sense to the average person unless you're a programmer and a coder. So this is, to have the final result is probably better. Makes it more convenient for conversation, definitely, and for the end result.
Sure, thank you. I was thinking primarily in the area of legal documents and sharing documents, and just ensuring that all parties have access to exactly the same document, because the renditions are so real now that you just assume that we all have a view of the same document. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's definitely in policing, and like that's a whole other realm, right? Where you can use that whole policing side of things for sure.
Okay.
And Adobe implementing a safe system that you both trust, and by implementing that, that's your sign-off, and that's the pseudo direction of blockchain, and where we're going with metadata in front of what you see, be it a document, be it a digital human, etc.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's all fascinating. My couple of questions. You're about TV. If you're working with an animated series, do you integrate your characters with animation, or you replace animation, and then the series becomes
Good
AI.
question.
Where we are right now, I believe, I'm always thinking about what's the use of the technology right now. The practical use of the technology, as I see it, as an asset that helps you create the Bible and story, help you sell it, and then can be used to help you generate things like dialogue, how the character would talk, because you can actually talk to the character. But soon, it's going to move much beyond that, I believe. There's so many companies going after the space where the character will actually be used in the animation, as we know, the animation process, where you'll be able to just, right now we're doing prompt to image, but soon, I mean, it's already happening where it's prompt to scenario, so constant character, multiple character. So we're definitely on the there.
Yeah, I mean, for look dev and for pre-production, we're already there. It's really being used substantially.
Yeah.
But when you get into machine learning and AI applications being used as software, a lot of companies now have all these tools that increase performance and help animators get to their final actions a lot quicker. So there's assisted AI movement, and in to actually move a 3D character for all those 3D animators out there, they know how complicated it is and how many steps you need to take. Well, now the pose detection and action detection, whereas if you're reaching for someone's hand to shake their hand, it will turn the hand and insert it to the other hand because it's aware that you're trying to do this action, and so you don't have to do all those little subtle micro movements to get to that final result. So you can save hours of time to create your creations.
So to that point, my next question was, does this increase the budget considerably using your technology in combination with animation, or does it save?
It lowers the budget. Sure.
Lowers the budget.
For sure.
Definitely, because what you're doing essentially is you're creating automated systems. So you spend time in the pre-production, but you don't do more time in the post-production and in the production of it, because I mean, the future goal for all animation companies is to film and composite in real time, to have your show be produced and delivered as quickly as you're filming it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to actually do the work after the fact.
We're seeing it from the ground up, like from the beginning of the process, where it's almost like like what we're developing is a different kind of team that understands technology, how to use it. They can be trained in different things. Our last 3 hires are all creative writing graduates, because they have these amazing imaginations, and we train them on the technology that they need, and then we can bring them along to what we believe is a realm of creation.
Mm-hmm. So you replace a playmatic, you replace those things that normally
you
are
still
done
need
to
some.
sell
You
the
still
project.
we'll see what we can replace along the way, what we can do, what we can't do. Again, as I was saying before, I don't visualize the future now. I visualize it in 5 years. So we're starting here at the edges, and we'll see where it takes us as the technology changes. Our job as a company is to stay on top of the technology, to understand everything, to play with everything, and use the thing. Most technology is useless. Most things coming out of research are useless to us as people that put things into the world. Just like any artist. But the good ones you kind of grab on, and you use the good ones until the next best thing comes along.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, great questions. Question over here.
Thank you. Actually, I think this woman here had a question before me. Do you want to? Okay, a technical question. When we're talking about learning in machine learning, and we're talking about AI, I think a key thing is that it has to be learn continuously. So I would like to know how frequently you are retraining these models on the data that it's picking up. So for example, if I were to walk up and have a conversation with your iPad right now, would it be taking that information and immediately reapplying it to train the model and then do it? And if you are doing that, oh my goodness, that's a lot of data. So
that's a
how
good
do you
question.
handle that?
Right now, no, we're not taking your data and adding it to our model, because it's just too it's really complicated enough as it is. But in the future that will happen. But that's easier on a one-to-one. Like if you're in a game or something and you're on a one-to-one where you're signed in as a user and the AI knows who you are. Right now, what they're mostly doing is they're data scraping, right? They're doing data scraping for slot filling. But eventually, it will be doing true learning based on that. But we're not doing that right now.
I mean, but that is a fantastic topic because
Yeah.
if you think about it, when you're, if your model is learning off of you, personality that you're creating is adapting to you, and it's like almost like a person that you're building a relationship with. You build a relationship together, and you grow together, and you begin to feed off one another. And I mean, if the model is
there are applications that are doing that, that are like the best friend app. You know, there's a bunch of them out there. But my understanding is what they're mostly doing is slot filling right now. Simply because they can't take every single person's data and train a model based on every single individual every time you talk to it. So what they're doing is there's sort of different segments of memory.
Or instances. Have different instances of the model and then have each one of those. So I'm thinking like the friend app or something like that. You have an instance of it and it is personalized to that person that it is friends with. But in terms of realisticness, if that's a word, I'm imagining that, you know, a human, going from a psychology perspective, the person that I am and am presenting right now in this context is different from the person that I am and I am presenting when I'm talking to my mother. You know, like each of those things are different. And I think one of the challenges with AI may be that context dependent changing of quote unquote personality. And I imagine that is something that could be addressed with continuous learning a little bit more. You do mention that they have scraping, but then that all goes back to the central thing. Anyway, it's a complicated topic.
It will exist eventually, I'm sure, but you know, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah, it's already existed in a couple of movies where they've presented that idea, and you know what? Like Jules Verne, usually things will eventually exist, right? Right.
Hi, certainly fascinating. Just wanted to get back to, so if you create something, but it's actually been derived from information that belongs to somebody else and maybe inherent characteristics of theirs, what at the moment is there protecting the person who actually is that person?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff around Stable Diffusion about that right now. Stable Diffusion is this massive language model that's doing all of these AI-generated images and video, yeah, there's a lot about rights going on. What we do is we're building. We go far enough from any one person that they're unrecognizable, if you will. They're unrecognizable by the time you run them through a million processes. You'll never know who's who or what's what. They'd be indistinguishable, unattainable, if you will. So that's how we do it. The large language models are going through a lot of rights problems right now, because who owns? It's this question of who owns the rights to an image that was derived from 10 million images. You know, but then the other side of the question is, do artists themselves take from other artists? I know as a musician I do. I'm influenced by many different things, and I merge them into my work in slightly different ways. And so these are the questions. Yeah.
I think that's how it's a gray area, is that it's doing the same thing that it's funny actually when you actually look at a deep learning model, it actually is trying to get the ideas of how the brain actually works. So it's like a human brain on steroids because there's thousands of machines and thousands of computations happening all at the same time. So if you think about it, it's really trying to mimic us and trying to mimic what we're doing. So yeah, there's limitations to it, but and I don't know if there is a body that exists. There has to be a body that exists that for replacing someone's face and using that in a production. I know there was a big controversy over Bruce Willis and what happened in Russia. They were using his likeness in a performance where he originally said that he could be used. Then a few months ago said that actually he didn't do that.
We actually had a really interesting, brings up this case exactly. We first intelligent NF de Louvre in Paris 4 months ago, and next to us was another artist And what this artist was doing, another AI artist, and what they were doing, I think the artist was, the painting that they were using was Van Gogh. You know how artists used to paint over their paint canvases when they didn't like the painting because canvases were expensive, and then they repaint over it. Well, they had found, it was the fighters or something. They had found the image of the painting, and they had used AI to completely image using style match to bring out the style matching, including the brush strokes, and then they used 3D printing to actually print it with actual brush strokes and texture, and then they were selling a lot of money. So and multiple of them.
Yeah, wow.
So like, so the question was it's very interesting, but is it okay to bring back someone's work that painted over their painting and never finished? You know, these are all questions that are being brought up right now.
I think the thing that's one, alarming us the most is that, our own personalities will be snatched away, and, all of a sudden we find that we've agreed and said something that we, is completely not what we would want, or we're misrepresented, or, now we are really written off because this, the eye of us is so much better.
Well, I think Will Smith said he's not going to act anymore. He's just going to keep his younger you out there.
Yeah.
One of the things SIRT's been involved with is showing this technology to ACTRA and to, folks that are involved with either copywriting or licensing images out there. But I think we're in the moment now. This actually has to happen in real time and evolve in real time because of the permutations that are happening. So I think it's going to stress out the union, the lawyers, and the insurance companies a lot to try to evolve something that maximizes, an actor's potential and also an actor's image of me today. Me is for this movie. Me tomorrow is for this movie. Who owns that? What role do I have in a revenue share?
There's actually a company out in LA that is purchasing the rights to people to resell their digital images, like actors.
So, sorry, I grabbed the mic because I just wanted to say that there's, in terms of IP and dealing with copyright, I imagine there's a very big difference between taking a person's image / personality and trying to build a model around that in order to create an AI, and there's versus creating AI in general that is using your data, which I think is probably going to be a little more like when you have the rights to a story of somebody's life, but it's only some of the people have agreed, and so you have to make characters. So these are characters of people, or similar to that. Anyway, I'll pass it away.
So thank you. I think we're gonna wrap up here. I think we did our job. We got everybody thinking. We got everybody asking questions about this realm, and that's what we'd like to do at SIRT is to start that. And David, I like your vision of what's life look like in 5 years from now, and the focus. So I want to thank you. For the work you've done, for the cool exhibit of the AI brain and the heart. And for more information, definitely tie into both of our companies. I know, David, you'll probably stay on for a little bit longer. So we're going to move on to our next panel. So
thanks, David.
Thanks again. Thanks again. clip of our virtual production innovation hub. And I think, Spencer, you've been at CIRT longer than I have. 10.5 years ago and a bit more, we first started into something called motion capture and pre-visualization, the work that James Cameron was doing on Avatar back in the day. And this evolution over a couple of years now of what we're calling virtual production, the use of LED screens and creating a real environment live within a stage. And so super excited for this conversation because we know a lot of work and content being created with virtual production, but where is it now? Where is it critical for getting the content and the shot you want by leveraging a heavy set of technology? So I'm going to turn it over to Jason and Spencer, who lead our Virtual Production Innovation Hub at CIRT, and welcome to the rest of our panel.
Thanks very much, Dave. Yeah, pleased to be here today. I'm Spencer, the Virtual Production Lead here at the SIRT Centre. My background's in film production, animation, visual effects. I work a lot real-time technologies with Canadian companies on their sort of research goals. So the SIRT Centre, we conduct applied research using these technologies, and we're really interested in helping companies adopt virtual production tools and real tech to accelerate their workflows and create efficiencies within production. And that's kind of what this session is all about. It's the state of virtual production, where things are now. We want to ask the question, has these tool sets changed the way that we make content? So we're very pleased to have our panelists here today. Over to you, Jason.
Thanks, Spence. Yeah, my name is Jason Hunter. I work very closely with Spencer here at the SIRT Centre. I'm the production lead. And I just want to start by introducing some of our panelists here today. I'm going to start by we have 2 folks online and 2 folks with us here in person. So I'm going to start with Connor Murphy, Virtual Production Department Manager at the 3rd floor. Connor has an incredible list of on-set experience with pioneering projects. He develops custom VP tools and integrations for unique shooting challenges. So Connor, welcome, and I want you to say a few words about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So at the 3rd floor, we mostly use virtual production on large-scale projects with small teams, and it tends to be that you have a production that has gaps that need to be filled. So let's say that's tech viz, figuring out how your amazing shot that you've just animated in previs needs to live on an LED wall or a real location or whatever the case may be. We'll kind of combine a different flavor of virtual production tools to be able to cross that finish line.
That's awesome. Thanks, Connor. Yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing about that because, virtual production is such a broad term right now and it's used in so many different capacities.
Yep.
So yeah, very excited to hear more about that. Next is Pasquale Croce, Virtual Production Supervisor at EDI Effetti Digitali Italiani. His work started in Rome to Paris, London, LA, and back to Italy now. EDI is a leading company in Italy for visual effects and advertising and cinema. Pasquale.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good morning to everybody. Yes, EDI is a company that is mainly focused on visual effects, and our goal for virtual production is mainly for cinematography and for commercials. We've been researching and developing virtual production since the last 3 years, and I must say that with the pandemic period, there was a great push in this field for our clients, customers.
That's great to hear, yeah. And as we'll start to get into later, it's nice to hear different formats, short form, long form. So over to you, Spencer. Thank you, Pasquale.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists here at the stage with us. So Matthew Naiman is Virtual Production Specialist. He's a filmmaker, VFX artist, and virtual production specialist. He's worked as a VFX supervisor and is also co-founder and director of virtual production at Immersion Room here in Toronto. Matthew, so hello and yeah.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm here with Immersion Room, and our team over at Immersion Room has been working on sort of two aspects of virtual production, both in the world of LED volume virtual conversion. So we've both been operating a virtual production studio in Toronto for the last year, aimed at more independent and commercial production as a television and feature film, and broadening the user base of the technology. Well, we've attempting to solve some of the technical hurdles that virtual production, that LED volume production has hit, and really sort of building a new ecosystem for driving LED volumes. And we've made some really amazing progress.
That's excellent. Look forward to hearing more about that. Accessibility to this technology is always a challenge, so that's fantastic. I'd also like to introduce Edward Hanrahan, Director of Virtual Production at William F. White's International. Edward has designed virtual production workflows that integrate with traditional visual effects at Scanline VFX, and has also worked as virtual production designer at Pinewood. Edward, please take a moment to say hello.
Hello, thanks for that. My name is Edward Hanrahan. I'm currently at William F. White, the Director of Virtual Production. I come from a long career in VFX, and now I'm working more on the physical side of virtual production. So we build large-scale LED volumes, productions, prioritize how to use them efficiently for their shoots, and then what equipment ties into those, whether it's cranes, lights, and how we can hook that together into sort of integrated workflows to help productions achieve success. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. As we sort of described here, there's a pretty broad gamut of uses for virtual production and how it could be applied in the film and television world. So let's start sort of high, we'd like to know a bit about what projects everyone's been working on. Have they been long form? Have they been short form? Sort of commercial base. Try to answer that question of getting the most virtual production here in 2022. Having a local studio in Toronto, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your clients and projects?
Sure. The clients and projects that come to Immersion Room really run the gamut. We're sort of as much educating potential clients about how they could be using the technology as we are actually facilitating the use of the technology by all those clients. A lot of tours, something for some people, but had features, we've had commercials, we've had a lot of children come by, which is really, really great. There's a ton of use for LED volumes in children's programming. We're sets to build, less compositing to do, opposed to shooting on a green screen. A ton of driving process stuff is a major use of LED volumes, and coming up with workflows that work for us and for our clients for driving material. And quite a bit of agency work, bit of commercial productions that don't want to do a ton of unit moves, that don't want to go to multiple locations, but also want a more authentic look than a green screen studio to give you. And virtual production, especially at a studio the size of Immersion Room, we're going to bring the scale and the cost of entry down to just make that a reality for certain other productions that couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that's really great to hear sort of the tools being used in like smaller things, not just like as an entire pipeline, but maybe just for a couple pickup shots here and there between. Very interesting. I'm going to online. Pasquale, how about in Italy? How are things going with in your world in virtual production?
I must say the last year was
Sorry.
Sorry? Sorry. I must say the last year was a great year for us because at the beginning of this year, Cinecittà made a huge set, LED wall, a huge LED wall stage. And we've been working in that stage since basically June, working on movies. We had the opportunity to experience many solutions, like we did an onboard, an onboard camera on planes. So we had something like a camera car for planes, actually shooting images of a plane flying around, but was just on a gimbal inside the LED stage. And we did many camera cars, and we did many shots for commercial. Same reasons for dealing with different location in a limited amount of time and reducing the cost of transferring all the entire troop. So yes, it was a great year, and we are about to increase our market next year because we are aiming more and more on the production of TV series and movies.
Oh, that's great to hear, and nice integration of components and other tools, cranes and other filmmaking devices. Nice segue to Mr. Hanrahan here. William F. White's owns 2 LED volumes on this side, 3 now.
So we have 3 volumes across Canada, and then of course like our educational training facility that we're bringing online. We've been working on large scale AAA series here in Toronto and in Vancouver. So those kind of are really big projects, and then of course working on some very high-end commercials with the people at Alter Ego, and really high-profile stuff. So commercial world it's very different for virtual production in Canada, where we're a little bit more of a budget market in a lot of senses. So getting people to understand how virtual production can save money in a commercial time frame a lot of the time. Doing a lot of education around that and trying to make it to help producers understand how they can benefit from it.
Yeah, a lot of us, we've been doing it for a long time, but it's still very new to a lot of the world. So that education part is really important.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to give a shout out to Matt in the immersion room, and I know all the stuff that those guys are doing there, and here at SIRT as well. So I think all of that is really important. So great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really nice that it's been a sort of a collaborative effort as this tool has been emerging. Lastly, Connor, the third floor, they're really known for previs and virtual production. The third floor has been using virtual production for a long time. What stands out in this year, 2022,
Yeah, so I would say in this year, we really took the process that we started on the Mandalorian seasons of using Extend suits to do a rough blocking pass, assembling those, and then having them ready for the director to shoot on. So that kind of early involvement of performance of virtual camera and really getting those key creatives in their hands-on early on. We built on that to support some of our other LED wall shows where they needed more, previs guidance to be able to figure out where the LED wall is going to be, even which sequences are going to be shot on the LED wall or not, and then kind of backing into, the real-world constraints of trying to not see the ceiling of, whatever your limited footprint may be, and obviously hiding the lines there, trying to figure out where you can, make it not quite so obvious that you're shooting on a stage.
You mentioned a really important aspect there about like doing previs, or I guess you'd call it tech viz, of even trying to figure out what content would be, shot in LED wall. And that's kind of a really important concept for, people who are new to these technologies to understand, is that sure, there's previs that you can do with, the narrative, but then there's also like trying to determine, what scenarios the technology is perfect for.
Yeah, I think years ago, this isn't so much the case anymore, but there were cases where, bad guys would be animated running along through the stage and then pass right through the wall as though they were going to be a double handoff. And as soon as you put that up in front of somebody and go, hang on a sec, you realize that those people can't just turn digital. So that being kind of a silly example, just showing people what it's going to look like on the day. So you have your live action actors, you have your live action set, you have your LED wall content, and then maybe there's some elements that are going to be added in post. Just showing those layers in a clear way through TechViz can really help all the departments to row in the same direction, sign off on the day, know that they're going to be prepared. So that goes a long way.
Yeah, and because this is, such a new tech and kind of, playing off this idea of the education and the training that's going on so far, maybe we can speak to a little bit about how set has changed from a VP set to a traditional production set. And I'll split this into a sort of a two-part question, because there's kind of the ICVFX, the in-camera visual effects side, and then the fully virtual production side. So Ed, why don't you start us with sort of the ICVFX things?
Yeah, of course. I mean, shooting on a volume is a bit different than traditional green screen shoots, let's say. But the goal really is to keep most people's roles the same. So if you go and talk to sort of a AC, his outside of a little bit of time to play with the focus on the camera and figuring out, where it's going to cause issues if we're landing the focus plane directly on the LED. His role on set doesn't change too much. His experience as part of the team is the same, and I think that's a really important part of virtual production. We want to seamlessly fit LED wall shooting into a normal production. We can't ask everybody to change their job, or I don't think the technology will be accepted. So working with on-set experts is really critical, and whether that means handing controls off to like lighting controls off to the board operator and letting them drive where light curves are positioned and the color temperature and intensity and all of these things. He's a expert in his field. He's a career professional at doing that. So let's lean into him, and we can keep our control team focused on things that we can only do inside of Unreal, or maybe the color for the wall. Let's try and run that through the DIT. So he to do a live grade before we're sending the image directly to the wall. So how do we incorporate these career professionals that are already on set, that have been working there for so long, and use their expertise to help make it a more cohesive shooting experience?
A little bit of that upsetting and a little bit of that sort of just understanding they fit this new world, I guess. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to cut anyone out. We want to use their expertise. What we're good at is sort of the deep tech Unreal stuff, content creation, planning, all these kind of things. But there's a certain point where it's you're a first AC for a reason, yeah.
On the in-camera impact side, anything to add there, Matt? Or I'll add a secondary question of Ed spoke to how the existing roles fit in. Are there any new roles in particular that emerge?
Yeah, so we definitely find on the productions that we host at Immersion, we, like Ed said, we want people to be able to be our traditional roles. We don't want people to have to find a DOP who does virtual production as to their conventional DOP. We have found it a couple of roles to set. It has makes jobs, which is great. Just like having, what I often do there is, the nomenclature isn't settled on what all these people on set should be set yet, but we call it director of virtual production instead of director of photography. So sort of interfacing with the traditional crew and interfacing with the virtual production crew to allow the animation to flow smoothly without them speaking the same language. So basically, talking to the AD to find out what needs to happen next, and then prep the Unreal team so that they can have that ready. There's definitely an administrative side, I think, that gets added, especially on productions that had less prep like ours tend to do, which is the other thing that virtual production changes on set is more pre-production time because most people are used to being able to shoot on a green screen and saying, we'll just figure it out later. And unfortunately, you have to figure out a lot of it ahead of time when you're shooting on an LED volume. The benefit is you don't have to spend all that time in post. So it's just working with the teams. Hey, Sean, I didn't see you. Is working with the teams to figure out how to shift around the schedule and shift around the budget, not expand it in any direction, but allow it all to happen in this new way.
And you said, unfortunately, but I would argue that, we've been saying it a long time, fix it in post. I think everyone, we say it often.
Coming from VFX, I've had some bad stuff dumped in my lab.
I think we're all happy to shift that work to the pre-production side. Connor, can you speak a little bit to the, virtual, not in-camera visual effects, but fully virtual production side?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that set runs over there.
Sure. I would say it gets sliced up differently on every show, right? So these days, a lot of what the third floor winds up doing is, like I was saying, kind of fill in those gaps. So you might have a major, what I would call a big boy mocap shoot with all the kind of classic bells and whistles, facial capture, that kind of thing. And then realize down the line that you have a whole bunch of background characters that can be all CG, digidoubles and things like that. And you need to find a space that you can fit that into your production. So that's where, my team would come in, you'd have two quick people show up on the day with suitcases that have extend suits in them. And then one day you throw all your stunties in extend suits. It winds up being like a warehouse full of ninjas, of people just jumping around, doing all their routines. And in an afternoon, you're recording at least as much of that background motion as you possibly can. That then goes into what would be called layout and animation, but we do it in post-viz. So you take your plate that has your hero character, your hero performance. You get some kind of direction on, okay, I want 2 people over his right shoulder, 1 person over his left. And as the explosion happens, everybody should go flying, or whatever the action may be. And then we can piece those in there that's good enough for kind of an internal or a friends and family screening, so that it plays in an edit, so that what that big sequence is. That's all different methodologies, one shot is a wide, all CG, one shot's a close-up on a green screen, a lot of this is LED wall, and so adding in those kind of missing pieces to help plug the gaps and tell the story, that's really, that's what we've been doing a lot of lately.
That's very cool. You make it sound so easy. Just layer them all in and put them all together.
It's like a sandwich, just lots of
When you
layers.
know all the moving parts, then yeah, it's nice to visualize them in that way. Pasquale, is there anything in particular you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I was thinking that in our market, we are promoting the virtual production or the use of the LED wall, not only for projects and sequences that needs a lot of complexity, like camera car or camera plane, as I said earlier, or movies with visual effects, with strong visual effects, but also for simple needs, like, for instance, shooting. We did recently a movie that is shot in a restaurant, and the restaurant was recreated on stage against the LED wall, because most of the scene starts on late afternoon through the golden hour and the night, and was, of course, very difficult to shoot on location. Although you can find a restaurant and it's not a problem to shoot specifically in a restaurant, but in terms of light condition, you have that golden hour is very short, that limits your ability to do different takes and so on. So in other terms, this is a simple application for a complex technology like LED wall that can be even quite cheap, because you don't need full virtual production. Most of the time, you just need a backdrop and an accurate reproduction of the colors. And this is something that we believe is going to have more and more market in any kind of movie and commercial production.
Yeah, that's great. And just wanted to touch on something you mentioned there. You said simple virtual production. Again, there's so many flavors, so many different layers of this type of technology. Probably referring to there as like simple backdrops, kind of like what we have going on here today, where we have a video just playing in the background, as opposed to something that's fully controlled using camera tracking and updating using a game engine. So there's all these different layers and tiers of virtual production we can dip into that would fit any size budget.
Yeah, that's a segue into like identifying like production efficiencies that these like tool sets can enable. And we, as a research center, really starts to look at the technical aspects and how we can solve very specific problems. And just to kind of give an example as a prompt, early on when we were working with these LED panels, we were installing them in different configurations. And you have to have a virtual representation of your physical screen so that it all sort of ties together in the virtual world. And creating those screens, was an effort. So, we were fortunate enough to receive a mega grant from Epic. So we developed a small plugin, has yet to be released, but we can really quickly create these different screen configurations using a tool. So I'm really curious to hear from our panel members, what tools, like what efficiency are you guys seeing, and or what tool sets, are you using, are you creating?
At Immersion Room, we've definitely gone all in on the building tool sets because our virtual production stage is not particularly off the shelf. We've developed our own receiving cards, and we've developed our own software video drivers at the stage. And these are not exclusive to us. We've actually partnered with some companies. We're currently building a stage tech in Shanghai. We're speaking with a lot of other companies that are very interested in building stages with our tech. The reason that we've done it is because we wanted to open up some capabilities that we feel are important to filmmaking. Most of us are filmmakers, and we wanted to sort of make first tech for LED volume. So for instance, we've been dabbling in very high frame rate photography. We've done some photography on the page synced at 480 frames per second. We're really focusing on multicam. We've developed some really neat tools on our end to shoot green screen and Unreal pixels on the same camera at the same time while you're filming on alternating frames. We want to build a bunch of tools that will open up some flexibility in virtual production in new ways by kind of inventing the wheel.
So shooting at those high frame rates, so you can green screen. You mean we can still fix it in post? Is that?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
I know producers are always going to want to fix it in post,
Oh,
so
okay.
you can either get it all in camera or you can fix it in post, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of new technology coming out for efficiencies, and when we talk about virtual production, now there's more content being created sort of right now than at any point in history, and efficiency is really the name of the game. How do we have these projects? How do we use our limited talent pool, limited stage space, limited equipment that is in a given market? Efficiently and still hopefully if we can cut down sort of set days from 18 hours, that's great. But so there's workflow efficiencies, but you're also seeing companies start on board now especially with like Ari heavily invested in virtual production. When we're looking at encoders, up until quite recently, encoders. For a camera, we would have to add like a UMC4 or something to get data off of the camera, so we can use that downstream in VFX. Now you're seeing like with the Alexa 35, they're building these encoders directly into the camera, knowing that VFX is going to be part of the workflow, knowing that virtual production is going to be part of the workflow, and they're just streamlining the process, and it's becoming a lot easier to get this aggregate data off of set, compiled to a way that makes it really useful, and then we'll ask that as a package to a VFX vendor, whoever they may be. So all of these are just layered efficiency that we have to have in order to meet this growing content demand.
Yeah, it's really great to see all that like hardware and everything kind of coming full circle. What was once technology that was piecemealed from different things just becomes its own breed. I wanted to give Pascal or Connor the opportunity to say anything before I move on.
Sure. One of the we've been working a lot with is an AR iPad app we have called Cyclops. That's been a big success for us, just in empowering filmmakers to make decisions in 3D. So basically, we can go take Unreal content. Sometimes it has to be optimized to be able to run on the iPad, but then it becomes self-contained there. And so that's great for early VAD reviews. Maybe your director's remote. You need to be able to just have him or her go through the environment, take screenshots, circle things, make notes. This allows them to do more than just look at a render and try and imagine it in 3D. They can actually walk the set using the iPad. That also extends to AR applications. So there's a different mode in the same app. You can place your monster or your set extension or whatever it is in a real life location and go, walk through that, see that composite, have your buddies stand in for your movie star and be able to frame up on them and validate that what you've built is going to work in the actual shot.
Yeah, such a
Regarding,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Regarding us, we are focusing the research and development basically on two main issues. The first one is how to generate masks of the characters, of the actors in real time or almost real time. We tried with the ghost frame, but it creates weird effects on stage. So we are focusing on two ideas. The one is a local green screen that can follow the actor, and the second one is more using an artificial intelligence solution like Copycat and see if they can work in real time to provide dailies and pre-visualization of your CGI added content. And another field where we're focusing is the interaction with the real world, because in the movie market, we often needs to move for instance, the car or the plane to create the effects of running on the road. So how we can drive from the digital side some actuators on the real world to create an effective reproduction of the physics. And this includes also a way to move the lights, because of course we need some practical lights, for instance, to emulate the sun. And sometimes we need to move this light according to the movement of the subject or of the camera movement.
That's so exciting. I think it's a really exciting time to be, developing these tools, and the tool development is kind of part of the process right now, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
Moving a little bit into the future and kind of tying into the panel we also saw of artificial intelligence and virtual humans, I'd like to pose a question of like where you might see the integration of virtual humans into virtual production in the future. Maybe we'll start with Connor, since the third floor does so much, previs already working a lot of those virtual characters.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously in previs, we've had, some level of polygonal human for decades, right? So I think it's really just limited by the hardware. I mean, as soon as meta-humans are able to have a whole crowd of them running, we'll have meta-humans in there. I think that's a huge leap forward in that digital human space. But it's only going to look it's going to look as good as they look, right? So at some point, you're going to put them in the background. You're going to put some smoke in front of them. You're going to do what you need to do to just create the illusion that those are real. Nobody wants the digital humans jumping out as being fake, obviously. I know that right now it's pretty common to be shooting on an LED wall. And if you do have those background humans, especially because you may want to art direct them in the shot after the fact, that they become a post element. And so I think that workflow, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Speaking of digital humans covered in smoke, this was actually a project that we did with the third floor for Caledon Soccer Club, and it was filling a stadium with thousands of digidoubles, and of course we pumped a lot of Atmo at the set. That was kind of the look of the commercial, but yeah, it definitely sort of our sins as far as where the technology is right now, but it is progressing there. Like we can, a couple of years ago, there weren't any background digidoubles, and now we're starting to introduce them. They're starting to get better. Obviously, tools like MetaHumans are coming out and making high quality digidoubles widely accessible and very quick to produce. Crossing sort of the uncanny valley or doing hero close-ups on them, that's kind of a world away. And to the AI point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see sort of an AI pass going on top of that, similar to like a de-aging process. But yeah, I mean, as far as fully digital, uncanny valley proof virtual humans, it's probably a ways away for that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see AI kind of doing a paint job on them.
Yeah, that's really interesting because we all know how difficult it is to make true to likeness digital doubles, but there's always these new styles coming out with AI painting and things. So if there's a particular look, then it can be achieved that way, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm really looking forward to seeing these digital humans actually on the LED walls in very artistically composed shots. It's like many years ago you've seen examples of kind of digital humans in the background and then making a transition, jumping off a building, rolling behind a boulder, and then the real actor comes out from the boulder in front, in the real set, those kind of the things. It's almost like looking back to those more traditional camera tricks, camera illusions that we use all the time in old visual effects, and then reapplying, reinvigorating those approaches, in the stage, because those work, right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to it being used more and more.
I was going to say it's slightly less targeted directly at virtual production, although I've seen it being incorporated into some workflows live, which makes it in-camera effects. There's really interesting stuff being done with AI-generated sort of deepfake tech for translating markets, where you can film actors speaking in one language and then use deepfake tech to actually reanimate the lips and face to speak another language on the dub, and it's really amazing. It'll open up some content that otherwise wouldn't make it to foreign markets or from foreign markets to us. It's a really, really cool use of AI stuff to modify human beings on film.
I think that's great too, because honestly, the mouth is what normally gives it away for me when I'm watching one of these virtual humans talk. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, since you brought up AI, I mean, that's a really good example of how AI is, accelerating an aspect of virtual production. And we've seen some, even other really interesting use cases for AI. And one that, I didn't even really realize was happening, was what they are actually using in production already, is using AI for deep search purposes. You have companies, that have been around forever that have decades and decades of virtual actual images, videos, 3D models, and there's efficiencies you can experience, accelerating that workflow. Having artists, their natural language instincts. Oh, I need a sky that's dark and stormy and gloomy, but like it's going to take me to search through this image, but they can just ask the database for that natural language, and then it pops in. Right? It's like those kinds of things that are not flashy. You never really see that effect of you getting efficiency, but then it's there. Yeah. Is any of our panelists using AI in any way like that?
Well, I mean, we've had discussions on our end about how best to use AI. I had to delve into them too deeply, but we're very interested. I think one of the first things sorry, there's two sides. So we want tools to, for instance, eliminate moire from shots, because that seems like a very achievable thing for artificial intelligence to do. You give it a bunch of content without content, you give it, right? You can make training sets that way. But what on us is actually that LED volumes are extremely useful tools for training machine learning by generating data sets, because you can generate the same image over again with people, without people, right? Using motion control cameras, LED stages. They also have reference to what optically unmolded Unreal render would look like from that camera versus the optical through the camera. So we're actually very interested in doing heavy set collection from our stage and using that to generate tools for virtual production.
No, sorry, I'm just thinking about that. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. That's such a great concept. Yeah. We have a question from the audience. Oh, yeah. You have to use your microphone. Oh, sure.
Where's that? There we go. Thank you. Hi. That's a question I have for you guys. If you think you can't realistically answer it. It was also a question of previous panel. But how long do you think realistically it's going to be before we have a fully virtual production created by an AI from beginning to the end? Like with everything, like writing, the acting, the sets, the lighting, the sound, everything from zero to the end. Is there a timeline that you think is realistic for this? It will come, don't worry about it. Matter of time.
The title is escaping me right now. I'll see if I can look it up after and get it to you. But I've seen some short films made that were written by AI, where the scripts are then given to actors to act. They're both amazing and hilarious, because it's not there yet. And tech like Stable Fusion and image generation, the video version is coming along at, I find, an alarming but also incredible pace. I think the future, it's extremely hard to tell when it's going to happen and how, but I think it'll definitely happen. The idea of letting computers run free and generate what they're going to generate. I don't think that will supplant human creativity, much the same way television didn't destroy radio. And the internet hasn't quite yet destroyed movies and television. I don't think AI will necessarily nix the need for the human creative. Just let humans be more creative.
I think you'll see it like within the next 2 years. It won't be any good, but like someone's going to do it for the novelty of it, and then that's going to like kickstart like the iteration of it for sure.
Yeah, it's like a two-part thing because as you described, Matt, like all the tools are there. You can plug your prompts, get your script, then you can feed that script to something else and get some images out of it or get some video out of it. So really like who's going to stitch all the tools together to make the all-in-one thing. And then who gets credited? I don't know about that.
It is comforting to know that the tools are, I think, a little worse than everyone thinks that they are, and it still takes a ton of effort to get great results out of all of this.
Probably generate a new genre of comedy, I think. It will like make a whole new.
And what about the virtual actor then, the fully virtual actor that is just acting by itself?
I don't know. Yeah, so we have a lot of discussion of digital doubles already. So creating that actor is something within our realm. Then there are lots of things that are doing movement recognition or animation based on inference. So animation based on text input or audio input. I think a lot of the tools are sort of there. I'll just piggyback with Spencer's answer that like in the 2 years, you'll probably see a version won't be any good. And again, it's kind of like stitching those different tools together. I'm interested in Connor, though, if you had anything, again, with their work in Previs TechViz.
Yeah, so
pipe up there?
I'm completely with you guys. I think the human element is certainly never going to get removed, but I think that I can easily see where it would move to curating it. And so let's say you had a post-apocalyptic city is something that I feel like an AI is only a couple of years away from being able to generate a reasonable facsimile, right? And that may be a starting point. Maybe you tell it to generate a city and only a third of the buildings are usable and the rest are ridiculous. That's a lot faster than having an artist sit there designing a building, building it out, doing that kind of thing. So I think in terms of iteration of kind of content creation, I think even people, when it's background people and saying these are the post-apocalyptic miners in green outfits, like that seems like a great prompt for an AI to create in the background. I'm definitely with everybody else. I think you're always going to have a human main actor, at least driving the performance, if not being the live action. And then you're always going to have a human, what I would call curating it. So again, I don't know about AI writing, but I would imagine that like news articles, some content could be created that can be a great starting place to just start with an editor going through, finding the gems, linking it together, and taking it from there with their creativity.
Thank you.
There's another question in the audience. I'll have Andrew's going to run up here. I'll just wait for the mic so everyone online can hear as well. Thank you.
I have a diaphragm. But anyway, no, I was just wondering, budget, all of this amazing, alarming, you use that term, stuff. Because, I saw what it cost to make a short with VR and stuff like that. It's like, that's alarming too, the numbers, money-wise. But maybe I don't know enough.
Well, I think the money-wise, there's two things happening right now where all this stuff is quite new, and it takes a lot of investment to get it up and running. But the goal, like anything, is really, you have the early investment to get the ball sort of rolling. Over time, the market expands. You demonetize this investment so you can make it more and more accessible to a wider audience, and then you lower the barrier to entry. So. Everything starts out like that, but I think costs will always sort of count so you can reach a mass audience is the goal. So, yeah.
Also doesn't necessarily need to drive up the price of all production. You can have a camera and go out into the world and make traditional films. It's another brush that artists kind of have at their disposal. And I think Ed's right that it's expensive up front and the technology is very new, but it's likely to start coming down in norms as it offsets other costs in traditional filmmaking.
Those are two great opinions from here in Toronto. Pasquale, is there anything happening in Italy?
Yeah, from my market, especially in commercials, is the price-wise, the money-wise goes to same price of the alternative to cheaper. Because what you have is, yes, you have an expensive stage and the expenses of the LED wall, but on the same time, working on the LED wall means that you can change your environment really quickly, and often this includes some production design elements. So you can have most of the set that is virtual, and this makes the shooting process quicker, which means less cost for all the other aspects, camera, troop, personnel, and so on, and more reliable results because you see directly what you are shooting, and you have control over the scene in terms of color correction and reframing. So yes, there are cases where you can be even cheaper than the real world alternatives.
I have a question. On the virtual set, you can work on multiple camera also?
Yeah, definitely. So you can have multiple frustrums in an LED volume. Normally, the most people are going to get out of it is 2 for sort of doing coverage. We've had 3, but I think at a certain point, it's just diminishing returns and trying to, you know, like any film set, how many cameras are you actually going to have running at a given time? A lot of high-end television, they're doing single camera setups just because that's how the DPs like to work. But yeah, the technology's there. If you have the render power to back it up, then you could theoretically do as many cameras as you would have access to. But yeah.
Thank you.
And we've actually already seeing like multicams being done like even more than 2 cameras on the broadcast side of things. You know, like in a studio there where they're doing, you know, coverage of like news anchors, so to do sports coverage, you might have 4 or 5 cameras, and there are companies in the world that already have a solution for that.
I was thinking just about axes. If there's a problem with the axis, with the camera, is a problem, or has to be like pointing in a certain direction?
Right.
You would normally have sort of one primary frustrum, and if they were to cross, one of them would be designated as override the other in order to make sure you're getting correct perspective from at least one of the cameras. So it's about perspective. Okay.
Yeah. We did some tests for shooting dialogues where you normally have 2 people, one in front of the other, having the camera set up that was basically framing away. So you actually have the 2 actors close by, but instead of framing this way, you are framing the other way, and you don't have problem of intersecting frustum.
Oh, that's an interesting idea, is to adjust the blocking to sort of suit the technology.
Exactly, because you can easily dismantle the word and reassemble in a different position that suit you for the frustum issue.
See another question from the audience here.
Hey guys. I actually had a chance to work with Matt Naiman at his immersion room, and it was wicked. Not only did we use the background for background replacement in kind of a traditional sense, but also it was a music video, and we used parts of the panels to do like beat synchronized lighting effects that would be repeatable take after take. This is really interesting, and I think a lot of artists who come from a traditional space are a little bit scared of it, even talking about the AI stuff. But I think what's important, and I'd like you guys to maybe speak to this if you've had an experience with this, is like reinterpreting the role of the artist in a way where, as an artist, it's not that you're doing a specific thing and you get really good at a specific technical task, but your skills are actually much more general. And if you abstract what you're really doing, like say as a DP, you're thinking about lighting, you're thinking about framing. It doesn't matter if you're doing that with a physical camera or if you're doing that in Unreal Engine. Like the things that you actually know and your actual experience, it doesn't matter what plane of reality you're doing it on. It transfers, and that's what's important for creatives to think about when using new technology like this. Do you guys have an experience with this?
Well, I mean, actually, some of my really great experience was on that shoot with you, where you have a big virtual production stage and you can do real-time, real engine and track your cameras and make realistic backgrounds. Or you can use it as a 70-foot wide, basically television screen to do video feedback on in a way that you couldn't otherwise, and bring multiple video signals. It's basically it's a playground, and there's a very traditional way to use it. And I love that there are filmmakers that are coming up with very non-traditional ways to use it. It's one of the reasons why we really want to bring the tech to so many different productions, because it doesn't just have to be, I mean, it is a lot, but it doesn't just have to be slightly out of focus backgrounds in dialogue shots to get rid of composites. It can be used as an LED production. It can be used as video feedback. It can be used to capture multiple incidences in lighting using high frame rate tech, like they did that on Thor: Love and Thunder with lights, and we're actually doing it on the stage. You run 100 frames per second, and you use 25 of them as video, and the other ones are different lighting reference to come up with relighting scenarios in post. So I think it's important for creatives to try the tools and to play with them, experiment with them, like you would in the real.
Sounds like MTV is going to make a big comeback.
I hope so. Live chroma key video.
It is.
Go
sorry.
ahead.
It is basically what we do. I mean, our goal, our focus is to make all the LED wall and all the technology almost invisible to the director and director of photography, in order for them to concentrate on what they want and their creativity. And what we do is interpreting their needs and providing them with the images, with what they need to tell the story. So basically, our aim is to make them totally forget about all the technology and the problem related about the technology, and solve the problem by analyzing their creative view.
Thanks very much, Pascali and Connor and Matt and Edward. Yeah, that was great to hear all those insights and all the discussions here. I have Dave looking at me over here.
We're gonna wrap up this discussion, and one of the things I think I was thinking about yesterday with the pitches and that, I think we might start doing tech pitches and on here's what we're trying to produce and how do we leverage technology to actually create that piece of content. So everybody has everybody's company name, email addresses. Please reach out to everybody on the panel. I'd like to thank Connor from California and Pasquale from Italy. We're going to wrap up this exciting panel of virtual production. I think you kind of can guess it's here. It's rapidly developing and converging, and I'm super excited to continue to see the work out of the SIRT stage, but also everybody's respective companies on more creative vision coming about by being able to leverage technology. So thank you for everybody.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, buongiorno, my name is Paolo Granata, I'm an associate professor at the University of Toronto. I feel a bit like the big brother, so I'm watching you, but also I wanted to say hi to everyone. I wanted to say hi to my fellow embodied moderator Tony Tarantini and to our amazing panelists for today, Miles, Dale, Massimiliano Siccardi and Sandro Del Rosario. So I'm going to share a couple of thoughts for my opening remarks to warm up and start up the discussion. First of all, I like to say that not only the future of animation is immersive, but also the past of animation is immersive. It is in the very nature of communication to be immersive. Any spontaneous human interaction is, to some extent, immersive. Because immersive is our symbolic language, verbal and nonverbal. It creates the world we live in. A story, a novel, a movie can take us everywhere. And that is the power of human communication and the power of human imagination that makes us inhabit and experience different possible worlds. Indeed, we live inside the stories we believe in, inside the stories we like. And so human communication is immersive by definition, and since ever, we invented all the possible means for facilitating, for fostering this sense of engagement, this sense of embracement, particularly with arts and culture, I would say. And so that's why I believe that experimental and immersive exhibitions nowadays capture very well the intrinsic human need of being immersed and surrounded by stories. These immersive exhibitions, to some extent, mark a return to that ancestral, immersive and embracing nature of storytelling, the immersive nature of art, where human imagination is complemented with surroundings. From the cave paintings to the medieval cathedrals to the contemporary architecture, so we are entirely immersed in our culture. And in fact, the old and good Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. But he also said, the medium is the message and the user is the content. So it's clear to me that immersive exhibitions have a great potential for embracing the users entirely and make them play an active role into the very exhibition.
Paolo Granata, Associate Professor in Book and Media Studies at the St. McMichael's College of U of T, University of Toronto, an incredible expert of mass media, and in some way is on the track for successor of Marshall McLuhan. Now what do you think? Daniela Sansone, journalist of Omni Television, with me today, because we have an important, very important panel discussion on immersive animation. And the moderator of this panel is Tony Tarantini, professor of the Faculty of Animation, Arts and Design at Sheridan College. Un grande applauso, Tony Tarantini, with important guests.
Grazie, Cristiano. Grazie. Thank you. Thank you. It's a real pleasure and an honor to moderate this panel. Before we get into it, I'd just like to maybe just say a few things about the connection between animation and possibly this whole idea of immersive experience and so on. And so, animation has truly become the medium of the future. It is part of just about every aspect of our lives. It's no longer limited to those cartoons kids watched on Saturday morning and the great Disney features that amazed us in theaters. In today's world, we are surrounded by animation. It is pervasive, ubiquitous, universal, and omnipresent within all industries in cultural production. From entertainment to augmenting our realities, it provides us a powerful communication tool with no limits. It has allowed us to visualize and bring to life some of the most complex, microscopic, hidden aspects of our world, revisit the dinosaurs, envision the future of mankind, like in the Disney film WALL-E, if you've ever seen that. Is that a very present future in some ways? Explore the universe and manifest complex concepts like human emotions. So it is a medium that allows full manifestation of human imagination. I think we kind of realize that right now. Today we are here to discuss its use as a tool to produce immersive experiences. My hope is that this panel will enlighten us on the nature of the experiences, exhibitions, projects, and what makes them immersive. I hope we can explore together how they are realized, the planning, the execution, the creative process that underpins them. And of course, the role of animation as an important and indispensable tool in the creation of these immersive experiences. And if anyone is interested in actually maybe looking more into that, I would recommend looking into the Society for Animation Studies, their journal for those academics and students that may be listening, and also other journals like the Interdisciplinary Animation and Interdisciplinary Journal and Animation Practice, Process, and Production Journal. Those are great journals if you're interested and you're not an academic or a student that's looking to explore it. So, with no further ado, I have Miles with me here, at least one of the three guests on stage, which is awesome. And we had a nice, great discussion about our Italian heritage. And we both love to go back to Italy. He doesn't want to go anywhere else in Europe. I think your wife wants to go other places maybe? Or
she's asking if there are other countries in Europe, and I said, no, there are not.
I agree. You can't beat the food, the culture. I mean, you know, nothing against any other country.
I've
Europe,
taken
of
all
course.
the maps out of my house.
So we have a long connection. We talked about our heritage. I came when I was 11, and his grandfather, he remembers vividly with the wine cellar in the back. And anyway, so we share a lot of great stories. We all have those same memories. I have two other guests. Of course, Massimiliano, direttamente dall'Italia. Excuse me if I speak Italese a little bit. I hope you guys don't mind. I mix it up a little bit. Ciao, Massimiliano. Ciao. Ciao. And Sandro. Sandro is a friend of mine who's taught animation, who we've shared many conferences together and so on. So I thought it would be a great addition to the panel because he can speak to who are these new artists that we are trying to train that may or may not be useful to a producer type. He says, where do I get the talent to do this thing, right? So, and I love Sandro's approach to teaching art because he's very passionate. So I thought he'd be a great addition to the panel. So no further ado, and I'm not going to talk about their achievements because I'm sure you've either already read them and Miles' achievements and his history. So you can look it up, Google it. We have a lot of questions to question through. So hopefully some of that stuff will come through as we talk anyway, Miles. So let's jump right into the questions. And my first question for you is, well, we're going to break it up. So I'll talk to Miles first and then the other guests. And we'll do some general questions for everybody to kind of bring it all together. But let's get a little bit more about your involvement with this particular project. I mean, everything that you've done up to this point, just believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been amazing films, amazing series. You worked with Del Toro for the longest possible time, somebody that I truly respect. So how did you get involved? How did it happen?
Well, a friend of mine introduced me to Corey Ross, who's the founder of Lighthouse Entertainment, who produced the Immersive Van Gogh show. And so I have to Massimiliano, grazie mille for inspiring me because I saw the show. And it was incredible. You can't really, it's one thing to have the goggles on and that type of VR, but to be in a room, 360, and here's everything going on, and you can explore. It was inspiring to me. And Corey said he wanted to move out of visual arts into more narrative format. And he had done subsequent Frida Kahlo show and a Klimt show and Nutcracker show, but so we started talking about what that might be. Would it be original content, or would it be easier to transition into something with a known IP, and then how could we elevate that? So I said to him, I mean, the logical for me would be to do something that is popular and that attracts people, and we came to the idea of Disney. Now, Disney, of course, is notoriously protective of their brands. They're the biggest licensor of product brands in the world. But I had made three movies for Searchlight, Shape of Water, Antlers, and Nightmare Alley more recently. And I knew some people in the, bless you, the innovation lab over there, and I spoke with them, and we kicked it up the chain. And they have also been innovators through the course of their 100-year history. Invented the multiplane camera and so many things, color, sound on animation, and they don't want to be behind. So as we started talking about what it could be, and how we convince them not to do it themselves, but rather to do it with us. Their 100th anniversary in 2023, they said, let's do, something that honors 100 years of Disney animation. So instead of going into, Star Wars or Marvel or Pixar or some of that, strictly that, from Steamboat Willie to Snow White, all the way up through Encanto and everything in between. So then we had to decide, well, what would it be, and how would it, best be an immersive experience? So we put something together that some might consider a musical. It's a number of songs, and it starts, middle, and end like a Disney film, where it's we meet some characters who are young and full of life, and they're coming of age, and then they meet some challenges. And it looks like and then they use all the themes of Disney, do the right thing, friendship, family, everything to overcome those things, and then it's a fulfilled ending, having gained some wisdom and coming through the fire. So that's the show. But then to elevate that, how do you make it a little bit more interactive? So we started saying, okay, what could we do on the floor? And we're using LiDAR now on the floor where kids can run through a field of lava and make a trail. They stand on the ocean and make a wake. So, you know, how do you elevate it and make it truly immersive, get a little bit interactive? So, you know, those are some of the challenges in taking it from, you know, the beautiful Van Gogh show where we're in the mind of Vincent and see his thought, his process, to something that is more really kind of strictly entertainment. And also, you know, with going the way that they have been, especially the kind of movies I make for adults, you know, it's tougher. You know, over the pandemic, people learned to watch at home, you know, on their 85-inch screen with their 5.1 theater, drinking their own Cabernet, going to the bathroom or taking a call to and hitting instead of going parking popcorn, So we overcome that, you know. And so the communal experience, which is something that we love of theaters, you know, people love to laugh together and cry together, something that people can do with their whole families. And as a guy who's in the parks with my kids, I think parents also love to see the joy in their kids' eyes and to be able to experience that together. So with all of that, you know, that's the experience we're trying to deliver.
Yeah, awesome.
Tony, one second. We have a clip of immersive Disney that we can show right now. So in some way,
this is a very rough clip, and the show isn't finished yet. So with that caveat, Emiliano, don't be too critical of this.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Relive the adventures and joys of Disney's greatest characters when they come to life around you, featuring the animated sights and sounds of Disney's most iconic films. Disney Animation Immersive Experience.
And that's the whole show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, times 50
I can't
minutes.
wait to experience it. I mean, I come from a classical animation background. I shared an animation program. So for me, I mean, I'm just curious to see how you put it all together. It seems like a massive job. I mean, choosing the material alone is so much to choose from. I mean, songs or whatever. I mean, some of it driven by marketing. I mean, what find that process look like? That creative process once you engaged with it.
Well, the archives, it's an embarrassment of riches. Really narrowing it down was difficult. We had many more songs, but of course we want to go with some of the more popular things. We have some Moana. We have, you know, we don't talk about Bruno. There's some new, but there's also some old stuff. You know, there's When You Wish Upon a Star is there because it supports, you know, the Disney, one of the themes of, you know, if you wish it and dream it and follow through on all dreams, that those dreams can come true, which is, you know, kind of another word for hard work, but and hopefully a little talent. But yeah, no, it was interesting narrowing it down. Like I said, we wanted to create from all of the Disney narratives a cohesive show with a beginning, middle, and an end. But the other thing that I talk about is that, you know, it's not just the immersive part of it. On the way in, we have some other things where we honor the animators. So the pre-show experience also shows,
that's awesome,
you know, how it's done. So it's a peek behind the curtain of how it's made, and you know, we show
those are videos and is it interactive
flip
in any way?
And animation cells and kids can
really?
draw on top of
cool,
things.
Cool.
And when you go into the vault, we call it the vault, but basically you go through a vault door. The entire immersive space, which is, I don't know, a couple times the size of this room, it looks like a giant vault. So we have a digital vault with all the tokens, 1 million maquettes, and you'll see on easels, you know, pencil sketches moving. So it goes from how it's made to then you step into theoretically where it was made and where it's stored, and then it comes to life.
That's amazing.
And when the sun comes up everywhere around you for Circle of Life in The Lion King,
wow.
it's pretty breathtaking.
It's one of my favorite films, by the way.
Come to the show.
Absolutely. If not my favorite. It's amazing. So we have a lot of other questions we're going to get to with everybody on the panel. So I want to maybe just jump forward. Maybe one other question. But you named it The Experience, whereas Massimiliano, he kind of had the Van Gogh exhibit, although he's going to talk a little bit more about the emotional aspect of it. He's going to talk about some other things that I'm really interested in hearing him from. But is there a difference there? Do you find that you use the word experience as opposed to something else? It's not an exhibition, I guess. It is an experience, right? That's how.
Well, with fine arts, I feel normally we're conditioned, we're going to a gallery, and we still call it the gallery. But, you know, with moving pictures and video and dialogue and, you know, songs that are being sung to, that's really, you know, different shift in the medium. So, you know, Massimiliano made these amazing moving images and thought-provoking, and as I said, getting in the mind of Vincent van Gogh. And this is really kind of a much more standard narrative that can be followed, you know? I mean, not to say that you would want to come into the middle of his show in the middle, but you could. And whereas with this show, you know, you want to start at the beginning and you want to finish at the end. So for us, it was really saying, okay, it is more of an experience in that way. Look, you can call anything an experience, and you can call it, you can call it what you want, and I guess whatever sells tickets. But we should have called it an extravaganza. I can't believe we messed that up.
You missed the opportunity there.
Yeah. So, you know, and we consulted with Disney, as we do on all things. They like to be, you know, consulted with. And that's what we came with. You know, as I said, we wanted to honor the animators, and then we wanted to show, you know, a broad range of, you know, all the way from Steam to the future. So there's huge and drawn. Then there's that middle ground where it was, you know, changing to computer, and now it's entirely CG. And on that point, you know, so many more elements are available to us for newer film, because everything is kind of discrete, rendered. So you know, if you want, you know, backgrounds or middle grounds or characters. You know, so we for the newer stuff, we actually had more discrete elements that we could work with, because of what I'll call the alpha screen. Let's say this is the room, and that's the long wall. Sometimes we have the narrative on the short wall, and we have other things on the long wall, because the long wall in our gallery is, you know, with the aspect ratio is 3 images, whereas the short wall it holds 1 image. So now you've got to design and say, okay, what's on the short wall? How do we fill the long wall? And so now you've got, whether it's a mountain or a tree or something else, some environment that's complementary animation to you know what you're showing, breaking it up. Or how do you set up frames, you know, what we call style frames, to put the content into. So those are kind of specific challenges to the content.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because it intrigues me. I've noticed the Van Gogh, and we're going to ask Massimiliano, sei pronto? Well, we're going to talk about Massimiliano, because I mean, Van Gogh has made the rounds, you know, and one thing that I was curious about is how do you actually make it work at every single new location, new venue, you know, because I like to believe this is probably an essential kind of design for it all, and then finding an exact location that meets those requirements, and so on. So I'm gonna pose that even later on. Probably we'll discuss it maybe a little bit later. But I'd like to jump to Massimiliano, if that's okay, Miles.
Well, Massimiliano can actually answer that question, because every gallery is a different size, and you have to localize the show, whether it's square, rectangular, has a curved wall.
Right.
And so within the software, he can absolutely speak to that with some specificity.
Yeah. And then we'll end around to maybe make a full circle at the end and come back to it too, because it seems like an important part. Allora, Massimiliano. I'll ask you the questions in English, I believe, right? You understand quite well. Maybe you're...
Just a little bit. There is Daniela, is my translator. No problem.
Benissimo. Okay. So you're a pioneer in this area. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that story, and maybe that will lead into your, I guess, your perspective and your explanation or your description of what this immersive world is really all about. I know you might have a clip to show us to go along with that explanation. But first of all, what launched you into this kind of journey of designing immersive experiences?
Tu sei un pioniere degli spettacoli immersivi, quindi diciamo ci puoi raccontare tutta una serie di cose. Comunque, perché non ci racconti prima di tutto come è iniziata questa tua avventura e come sei entrato, come ti sei lanciato nello spettacolo immersivo?
Grazie, la domanda è molto interessante, perché quando io ho iniziato non si chiamava spettacolo immersivo, ma si chiamava multivisione.
So thank you. This is an interesting question because when I started, the immersive show was not called like that. It was called multi-vision.
Si usavano i diaproiettori e si proiettava delle grandissime immagini con delle sequenze molto semplici di animazione.
So we used the dia projectors, and you used to project very simple scenes of animation.
E il luogo più bello in assoluto, che poi è diventato ancora oggi per me il più bello in assoluto dell'arte immersiva, è la cava di Baudelaire, Carrière des Lumières.
And the place that I think is the best, the most beautiful place for immersive show was and still is the cave in Provence.
The Carrière des Lumières.
The Carrière des Lumières.
È un luogo magico perché unisce i due temi fondamentali che fanno sì che un'installazione immersiva sia emozionante.
So it's a magical place because it has the two more important ingredients that make the immersive show emotional.
A questo punto, Massimiliano, se posso, so che c'è un video che... sorry.
Sì,
I'll
yes,
do both. So che c'è un video che vorresti far vedere un pochino, così puoi spiegare un po' di più su questo argomento della cava,
Guarda,
no?
i primi 2 minuti e mezzo, così capiamo. È proprio Baudelaire.
So he's going to show us the video of what he's talking about, the cave, and so that he can explain a bit more of his love with this idea of as he calls it, arte immersiva emozionale. So, mi pare che faranno vedere un altro minuto quando parliamo. They're going to show you a little bit more while we're talking, because that's only a minute, I think, but you have a couple of minutes. We'll probably see some overlapping.
Così non si capisce nulla.
Sono molto interessato a sapere quest'idea dell'emozionale, this idea of emotional. Can you go a little bit further into that? Puoi spiegare un pochino di più di quello che vorresti dire con questa esperienza emozionale?
Guarda, se voi state vedendo in questo momento questa piccola lavoro sull'Alice nel Paese di Alice in Wonderland, vi rendete conto che lo spazio è totalmente, oltre ad essere totalmente immersivo, musica, immagini e esperienza sono fatti dalla persona, dal soggetto. Il tema è esattamente questo. In questo lavoro su Alice io non vedo mai Alice, perché Alice sono io.
Okay, so now you're watching the images, and this is a small work about Alice in Wonderland, and you can see exactly what the point is. We will never see Alice because Alice is me. So I am Alice going through the world.
Quindi gli elementi che compongono l'installazione immersiva, la location, l'immagine e la musica, contribuiscono tutti quanti a farci vivere un'esperienza emotivamente forte, perché noi siamo i soggetti di questa esperienza.
So all the parts of this show, that includes the music, the images and the location, contribute to make this experience emotional, because we are part of the experience. We are the subject of this experience.
Questo per me è il senso esatto dell'installazione immersiva. Quando io ho fatto Van Gogh, ho cercato di mettere gli spettatori dentro la testa di Van Gogh e quindi fargli vivere la sua il suo disagio, il suo problema.
So this is for me the meaning of the immersive show. When I did Van Gogh, I wanted to show people what is inside Van Gogh's or was inside Van Gogh's head. So his feelings, his blue.
Però c'è una domanda che voglio fare, an important question I think that needs to be asked, and I'm sure that Miles would like to maybe even an answer to this. But you know, the challenges and the successes that you've had along the way, do you think that you're at a point right now where you can, I'm not going to say easily because the creative process is never easy, but you have the expertise, or maybe in your team, because you have a very large team, by the way, I noticed on your website, that you can put these shows together, or there's still a lot to learn. But what were the challenges and the successes along the way that helped you to put on an incredible show like the Van Gogh Show?
So è una grande esperienza piena di sfide ma anche di successi. In che modo queste sfide e questi successi ti hanno aiutato a te e al tuo gruppo? Perché poi ho visto che avete un team molto numeroso dal vostro website. Quindi che cosa vi ha insegnato? In che modo le tue sfide e i tuoi successi ti hanno aiutato oggi a diventare, diciamo, quello che sei?
Io lavoro a questo tema, diciamo, in questo mondo dagli anni 90, quindi dal 96 più o meno. E ho fatto tantissimi lavori, addirittura di Van Gogh ne ho fatti 3, questo è il terzo che facevo. Traduci parte per parte.
So I've been in this world for a long time, since the 90s, 1966, 1996 specifically. You know, that would be too much. And so yes, and you said that. Oh, and yes, and this is actually my third Van Gogh. I already did other Van Gogh, so that's not the first one.
La sfida è sempre la stessa sfida, ogni volta che approccio un nuovo lavoro, è cercare di rendere la possibilità che il pubblico viva l'esperienza dell'artista che io sul quale sto lavorando. Esattamente questo.
The challenge is always the same, and so that the public, the people who are there, can live the experience of the artist that I'm representing. That is the most important thing for me.
Le persone con cui lavoro, oltre al team che vedete nei siti, stanno anche un po' in giro per il mondo, perché per ogni artista sul quale lavoro ho bisogno di un'esperienza visuale diversa, quindi ho delle persone che lavorano con me che sono in Norvegia, delle altre che stanno in Spagna, lavoro con tante persone diverse per condire l'esperienza immersiva di qualche cosa di emozionante.
So the people I work with, other than the ones that are mentioned in my website, are everywhere in the world. I work with people in Norway or, you know, wherever, because to me it's very important. Every place is different, and it's important that people have this different experience that can bring in my different shows.
Yeah, and that's a question I wanted to ask as a follow-up possibly, and that is, you know, choosing a location in all these cities that's going to be adapted to your vision of the show. It must have been challenging. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that. But also on hiring this talent in these different cities, because I'm guessing you're going to be looking for particular talent in those cities, in those places. How difficult is it? I mean, how do you find this kind of new talent? Or is it talent that's repurposed? You're finding just people like cinematographers that are somewhat repurposed for this team?
So, quanto è difficile trovare le persone in tutto il mondo che siano adatte nei vari paesi ai tuoi spettacoli, riusi delle persone che magari lavorano nel mondo del cinema, oppure trovi persone specifiche proprio dello spettacolo immersivo?
E in realtà non esistono persone specifiche dello spettacolo immersivo, perché lo spettacolo immersivo inizia ora. Diciamo dal nostro Van Gogh in poi inizia lo spettacolo immersivo.
Yeah, there aren't really specific technicians that are very good in immersive shows, because we are creating the immersive show now. So let's say that the first immersive show is Van Gogh, and now we start from there.
Ora quindi in tante parti del mondo si fa spettacolo immersivo e stanno crescendo delle competenze, ancora stanno crescendo, per me hanno tanto da crescere ancora.
So now we all over the world there are these kind of shows, and some abilities have been created, but they are a work in progress, a very work in progress. They have to grow a lot.
Io, oltre ad avere gli spettacoli con Lighthouse, ho una serie di lavori fatti con la produzione francese che stanno in Corea, che stanno in Giappone, che stanno negli Emirati Arabi, e ogni volta il tema è: questo lavoro in uno spazio diventa un altro lavoro, perché lo spazio detta una parte della drammaturgia.
I have some shows, not only with Lighthouse, but also with the French production that are in Korea, that are in the Emirates, in Japan, and they are different because every place is different, requires different ability.
So if I can do a follow-up question on that, because that goes into the location scouting idea. You know, is there essentially, when you design these shows, is there an overarching kind of design, an ideal location that you would love to have? If you don't find it, did you ever have an experience where you found something different, but it went even better? Because obviously you're kind of creating on the spot because of the new location, from what I understand. So, can it work in a positive way, the fact that you may be something that you're forced to be innovative with? But is there, first of all, is there an ideal location that you have in mind when you're designing these shows?
So, prima di tutto, esiste una location ideale che tu hai in mente prima, quando disegni, cominci a fare il designing del tuo spettacolo, e se non la trovi, può essere addirittura una cosa positiva, nel senso che trovi un posto dove puoi adattarlo magari anche meglio, ma prima di tutto esiste una location ideale che tu hai in mente per questo spettacolo, per questi spettacoli?
Sì, come dicevo prima, per me la location ideale in assoluto, la più bella location del mondo è la Carrière de Lumière, non c'è dubbio. Se nessuno di voi l'ha vista, vi invito ad andare per capire che cos'è l'arte immersiva, anche se non ci sono i miei spettacoli, anche se ci sono altri spettacoli.
Okay, the best location in the world to me is the cave in Carrière de Lumière, and if you haven't seen it, I invite you to go and watch whatever is there, even if it's not my show, because it's a beautiful place. It deserves to be seen.
Dopodiché ogni location ha una sua anima, direi, e quindi si tratta di scoprirne la natura. E noi, nell'adattare un lavoro a una location diversa, cerchiamo questo tutte le volte, quindi alle volte ci riusciamo, alle volte un po' meno, però insomma ci proviamo.
So having said that, every location has its own soul, and so when we see it, we try to adapt to each and every location. We try, and sometimes we are more successful than others, but we try all the time to adapt the location.
Perfect. So I just wanted to bring up something that I noticed on the website, and then we'll talk to Sandro so we get his comments on the panel here. But I noticed you had an incredible amount of shows. I mean, I think I noticed Monet, Chagall. I even noticed The Last Judgment of Michelangelo, which I thought that was amazing because I was there, and I thought what the show looked like, it probably would be more immersive than being at the Sistine Chapel. So that would be an amazing one. So you have quite a few, but I haven't seen too many travel around like the Van Gogh show. The Van Gogh seems to be the one that went around the world. Is that because the other ones were still kind of worked on? Is the Van Gogh the culmination of all those other ones?
Tu hai moltissimi spettacoli, tra cui anche il Giudizio Universale di Michelangelo, Monet, ho visti tantissimi, però nessuno ha viaggiato in tutto il mondo come ha fatto Van Gogh. Come mai questo, secondo te?
Ma questo è una questione di fortuna, ragazzi. Diciamo che Van Gogh è
It's
una
a matter of
postard.
luck, I think.
Van Gogh è una postard, ovunque nel mondo c'è Van Gogh, fatto da me o da altri 50 diversi, fa comunque numeri di persone che vogliono andarla a vedere. Le altri lavori sono più di nicchia, più particolari e hanno un pubblico molto particolare. Questo proprio perché l'arte immersiva comincia adesso, quindi bisogna cercare di educare il pubblico a considerarla un'arte, non un intrattenimento.
So, well, this is because Van Gogh is a star, and so wherever you go, there is a Van Gogh exhibition, whether it's mine or not. But this is a sign. Other shows are niche shows. So, but this is, I think, the immersive show is starting now. The immersive world. So I think that this is our role now to make this show more well known.
Thank you. Grazie Massimiliano.
Grazie a
Tomas,
te.
what do you think
Grazie
of
a
all
voi.
that?
Well, I have not been offered any caves. So, look, I think the choice of gallery, I guess what I'll say is there's a large continuum from art to entertainment, and Massimiliano's shows are very emotional, they're very artistic, they're very contemplative. Lighthouse is also a Deepak Chopra meditation show.
Oh, really?
So if you want to go
Wow.
even further to the contemplative, you go to meditation, and ours swings the other way to entertainment. So his is emotional in that it's evocative, and you could put it on a cave wall. I'd be a little worried about the kids bumping their heads on the heads for us, but on the other side, we get our emotion from character. So when our characters, we see them in their highs, and then we see them in their lows, where the bad guys are like in a triumph, and then we see them rise. So that's our emotion. So I think what I would say about the medium itself is that there's this continuum from art to entertainment, and everything falls somewhere in between, but it's not like you can't likely say the medium has to be this. The medium as it evolves can be anything, whether it's on a cave wall or in a place downtown where everybody can get to it. If they don't
Like
have tickets to
Massimiliano saying,
Provence.
we're at the beginning of something incredible. I think that's going to be, these experiences we're calling are just going to get more and more immersive, more interactive possibly. Like you have some of that going on. You were talking about the kids running. I love that idea with the...
Well, that's the exciting thing to me as a storyteller, to be on top of a medium that's been proven with Massimiliano's show. I mean, I don't know how many million people have seen it, millions. 1 in 80 North Americans or something. People want to do that. So now how do you keep evolving it? That's your question to me. And I unabashedly say our goal is more entertainment than contemplative art.
Absolutely.
I'm a producer, so I just think it's great. I think it can be many things to many people.
Right on. Yeah, exactly. Like it's very versatile, and I'm going to ask a couple of questions later if we have time that is going to tie into the other two panels that we had this morning, the whole idea of AI and this immersive experiences that we can have. So, Sandro, my friend.
Ciao, Tony. Hello, I'm looking for... Bene, benissimo, grazie. Thank you for this invitation, and nice to meet you, Miles and Massimiliano, piacere.
Piacere mio, Sandro.
Io e Sandro siamo tutti e due abruzzesi, come non so se ci sono qualche abruzzese in the crowd. But we met a long time ago at the conferences, and we've gotten to know each other quite well. And I know his career. The first time I saw one of his works was this beautiful film that he made, which explored his memories. Now, you can talk about that maybe a little bit, and I'm sure they're going to play maybe something, too, with regards to some of your work. But it was this beautiful piece. And you want to talk about that a little bit? Just because it seemed like it was like the beginning of you getting into this. I don't want to call it experimental, because that piece was not truly, but maybe it was a little bit. You can speak about it a bit, maybe.
Stiamo parlando dello sguardo italiano.
Sì, esatto, scusa.
So you see it in my background. There is a frame.
Okay.
Well, yes, I'm Italian, sono italiano, Rio. I grew up in Italy, but then at some point I came to the United States. So I shared experiences and journey of an immigrant. And with that, there is a constant dialogue between places and the memories of these places and the meaning of places in my life. When I start to make my own animated films, this importance, these places, these memories came to play a big role. So the Italian Gates, Lo Sguardo Italiano, is an homage to my native country, but in a critical way. I show my love for the arts, for the country, for the culture, but there is also like a critical thought. And it's all done with painted images in a way. I use oil pastels And when I was making it, I wanted to immerse myself in my images. So there is a connection to immersive experience.
Yeah, and you've been teaching this idea of experimental animation or immersive animation, or interactive kind of exhibitions or installations, as we like to call them a lot of times, animated installations, to students and kids. And what really fascinated me is that you've actually put together some great projects with kids and students that were maybe underprivileged. You want to speak about that a little bit and that whole experience?
Yes. I just want to comment that it's interesting that, like Massimiliano, come te Massimiliano, I also started with multi-vision, but back in the, I like it, col proiettore delle diapositive, right? And le dissolvenze, yes. And then, so I started, again, a long time ago, having this fantasy to be immersive in a space before I even started animation. So when I arrived and working with youth and students, it was somehow natural for me to also bring that possibility for two reasons. Animation, I think, is a wonderful, creative, I call it l'ottava arte, the art where you can put all the other arts in it and play. So it's amazing. It's you can do everything with animation. And the second reason why I went to multimedia, multivision, immersive installation is because we operate in a space. So again, we open up. We're not just looking at a screen, we're not just looking, but we are working in a space. So there is a combination of theater, dance sometimes, and the experience of cinema. And the students are, my students were at the beginning underserved students who had no background in the arts, no background in film, no background in animation, and yet the connection was trying with them to create, for example, their impression of the place they were living in. We've done an installation in Denver, immersive installation, and it was these kids who don't have means to live in the lower downtown sleek part of the city. They could come up with their idea, their impression of the architecture, of the atmosphere, of the people. And with my help, we created an immersive space with sound, projected element, animation, and all that. So, and their lives, at the end, their lives were somehow transformed. They felt a protagonist. So again, what Massimiliano was saying, you are then the protagonist. So they were the makers, but then they became the protagonists when they had to open up the exhibition to the audience.
Thank you. And do you find that, now I know you've taught in many other schools, and I think from the perspective of a producer trying to put a project like this together or put together an experience, obviously they're looking for talent. And Massimiliano just told me, or just told us, that there really isn't any specific type of artist that's been I guess going through programs or been taught immersive. But what is your experience when you've gone through in some of these institutions and courses? And are there courses? What do you find is being done about that, producing the talent needed to put together these teams that people like Massimiliano and Miles will be able to draw upon?
Thank you. It is a work in progress, like also Massimiliano was noticing. Although there are definitely some universities right now that are offering programs, and they're starting to offer programs in what they call expanded animation, multimedia program. In my experience is that still the best comes when we combine different interdisciplinary influences. Again, a lot comes from theater. I found that students and theater programs have a range of experiences that expose you to like moving in the space. Filmmaking is another important component because again, we have that, we have the editing, we have the sound. The sound is also fundamental. Now we're looking at, I'm looking, some of the images are coming from this other immersive experience I've done at University of Richmond. And there again, we were sort of pioneer. We didn't have the means, definitely we didn't have the means that Miles will have with Disney or that Massimiliano has. We had our own, like, we had to create everything with very, very little budget. But again, the possibility to operate in a space, to project abstract animation, to work with sculptural elements, to have live feed, to have an interactive soundtrack that the viewer could modify. It was all very exciting. So I think that I look at a mix of competence, a mix of influences from filmmaking program, from theater program, from animation. Ideally, if I had to design a program, I would bring all these disciplines together.
Aggiungerei coreografi, Sandro.
Yes, thank you. Yes, dance. I think I mentioned dance. Yes, choreography in that sense. Yes,
I'd like to
absolutely.
bring that as a question maybe back to everybody, because Massimiliano, se vorresti parlare un po' di più su questo tema dell'idea di corsi, diciamo, che tipo di corsi, what type of courses would we... If you'd like to maybe say some things about that.
Guarda, penso quello che dice Sandro per me è sacrosanto. Ci sarà un'evoluzione, le università, le scuole hanno già cominciato. Io ho già tenuto delle piccole conferenze per alcune scuole che vogliono partire. Ma la cosa interessante è proprio l'interdisciplinarietà che diceva Sandro. Io vengo dal teatro, dalla danza, sono stato danzatore, coreografo, regista, visionario, e tutta questa esperienza fa sì che lo spettacolo immersivo abbia veramente un valore artistico immersivo, altrimenti sono un po' di cose animate appiccicate che lasciano un po' il tempo che trovano.
That's a lot to translate.
Just a little.
I'll try to do my best. So he said that what Sandro said about the schools is very, very important. Because in fact, it's starting now, and he Massimiliano went around the school, called him, and he did some conferences about this. So this is the beginning. So it's important. It's a start, and then he started as a choreographer, as a dancer, and this was very important in his life to become who he is now. And so that's true what Sandro said, that this background was very helpful in creating the show.
Let's focus on interdisciplinarity. I think that's one of the keys that Sandro was talking about too, because it's such a new area that you don't really know until you get those great, those great graduates. It's like, oh my gosh, this person can be my next great director for the next show because he's just got this incredible vision, right, Miles? I mean,
I've made a career out of working with a lot of first-time directors where you might see a short and see the talent, and then if you can foster that and give some resources and some good guidance and a good second opinion, that's fine. In this realm, I think there's so many people, we're working with a great team on this show called Coco Lab out of Mexico. There's about 100 people working on this show. And you can, if it's
no. I tell my students all the time, turn your phones off in class.
The new phones have these things. They have these vibrating things. It's, speaking of technology.
Yeah,
just
I should fund that.
Yeah. We'll hook you up after the show.
Yeah, all right, man.
So and the intricacies of what these artists do, from the very technical side, working with them in the software, to then, the artistry of animation, where in our case, they're reverse engineering into many generations and color palette animations where you have to create these style frames that feel organic to the process. So I feel like this is a medium of specialists that you have to, I'm kind of a ringleader here, between, Disney, content, technology, marketing, everything, and the animators. But with the Coco Lab team, they have their own subset of incredible specialists that come from all different, some animate children's books, others are tech geeks, and so, managing that part of it, again, in a kind of a new medium that's just finding its way is definitely a challenge. I mean, a lot of that stuff, that's my head spin, to be perfectly honest.
Well, that leads us into the next question. So we're kind of going to maybe some general questions, and I know there's going to be also someone else who would like to ask you some questions towards the end. I believe we still have about 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes, 15 more, maybe more, I think.
Seems like there's ambivalence
they took
toward
a lot
that,
of
so
time.
let's just keep going.
Yeah, the last panel took up some time. So, but with regards to the creative process, because what you're bringing up, you bring something incredibly important. Massimiliano's bringing up and Sandro's bringing up is the talent aspect of it. And I've been involved in a lot of industrial animation, per se, series and features, traditional. So I understand that creative process can be quite demanding, and getting the right people right there. And as you said, different talents will bring something different to the table. But there has to be still that shared at the beginning. And how did you find that creative process? Did you get involved very much in that, or do you just trust somebody? You get your director. For this immersive experience, I'm trying to see, is there an actual director type at the head of this experience? I mean, Massimiliano stands out as being his own boss. But.
Yeah, so with Massimiliano, he's starting from scratch, and they're creating everything. In our project, we're really reverse engineering. It's like, so they said to me, okay, here's 61 Disney films, Disney animation films over the last 100 years. Give us a show. So guess what my mind was this summer? On a Saturday night, okay, let's start with Mulan and Snow White tonight, and it's Pinocchio
and a lot of popcorn.
And Jungle Book tomorrow. So really, what it was saying, okay, how do I create this, roughly say 40 to 50 minute show that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Some of them are in context full songs. So let's say Bruno or Colors of the Wind that honors nature from Pocahontas, and others are, call them montages that start and end with a certain, from Aladdin, whole new world, but then we see all the worlds of Disney, and you try and make that coherent in terms of, say, going from 2D to 3D or mixing color palettes.
But did you have a director at the head of this?
Well, it was kind of me.
So you directed it, yeah. Right, cool.
Well, in a way, there's no traditional director like
the
there
lead.
is
You
like
have a title
as
the lead or something?
Well, I'm called a creative director.
Okay.
So
I was trying to find it right now.
Coco Lab has their kind of creative lead. I worked with a team with an editor and a fellow named Chris Bond who knows everything about every Disney film ever made. So if I had to say, hey, Chris, where's there a guy putting his left hand up on the Tuesday? And he would say, yeah, that's in that movie. And so for specific, shots or themes or this or that, there was Chris. So it was kind of a team in that way. And we worked for 3 months, again, back and forth with Disney on the cut. What songs would be, we identified pretty quickly what the narrative would be, what the 13 or 14 songs would be. We cut one out, we moved the order a little bit, but that was really it. And then when we came to what the cut was, again, and Massimiliano and Sandra can probably speak to this, but the rhythm of a show is probably more important for us than it might be with them. So if you come with a high coming out of Bruno, now you got to get everybody back to resting heart rate for a minute, settle themselves, and build up again. So it has its own peaks and valleys and crescendos and things. So it was really just coming to that. And then, of course, as with any film that you direct, you get too close to the show, and people say, how is it? And you say, I could not tell you because I'm snowblind. So you show it to some people and you get some reactions and it's, oh yeah, I missed that. So in a way, it was not building from scratch, but we had all of these elements and movies and themes and characters. And of course, we needed to touch some of the popular ones, which we did. So there was, and honor the legacy of some of the older ones. So, we tried to do all of that. So it's just, for me, the excitement of that as a storyteller it was a new process. It's not like, the movies and TV shows I've made over the last 40 years where, you start with the script and then you've got the director and then you do pre-production, production, post-production, put it out in the theater, and then either you're crying in your beer or you're celebrating with confetti. So in this case, it was fun and a new challenge to be in that process where you'd have to say to the Coco Lab guys, for example, we have a sequence called Flight that incorporates some Peter Pan and Big Hero 6, and you say, well, okay, it's one thing to watch it on a TV. It's another thing to have them sailing across a 150-foot wall, and is this going to make somebody nauseous? So it all moves a little faster in the gallery than it does on a TV. And you're watching your cut, and sometimes in the cut we would split 3 images, knowing that we either wanted 2 of those on the long wall, 1 on the short wall. So the process was very different, and you had to sort of think, like, we made the Disney execs all go to the gallery in Los Angeles so they could see what it's like. Because if you're normally just evaluating a film and you're looking at it, you're saying,
No, you can't.
okay, what about this? And you say, you can't get it. Like, until you've seen it, and that was the for me. Until you've been there, you can't kind of truly evaluate what it'll be.
Wow, that's awesome, man. What a great experience. This might be exciting. So you're going to do it
It's
again?
easy for you to say.
You might do it again?
Talk to me in 2 weeks.
Tony, we have online a renowned Italian journalist and film critic, is Angela Prudenzi. She worked with us in Venice for the Venice Film Festival. We will really had an incredible conference over there, and she would like to ask some questions.
Perfect, yeah.
Angela. I think that is on she. Okay, ciao Angela.
Ciao Angela.
Yeah,
Il microfono, Angela.
yeah, this is Zoom.
No, il microfono disattivato, Angela.
Okay, we will fix the problem. Tony, if you can.
Adesso?
Okay.
Okay. I told that I'm very glad to be here with you today. Yes, I took some notes and I prepared a question. As you pointed out, the immersive animation will let us live unique experiences as an audience. Shows are, as Disney animation or Van Gogh, show us that the future is now, not tomorrow or after tomorrow, but now. I am a journalist and film critic, so my dream is finding the way to bring back the audience to the movie theaters. In which way immersive animation could help to bring back the audience to the movie theaters? Because I don't know if, I think that the audience is ready for new contents, but I don't know if movie theaters are ready to show this new content. What do you think about this?
Go ahead, Miles.
God bless you, Angela, for wanting to bring people back to the movie theaters. I've anointed you as Saint Angela now, and you will be our guiding light and spokesperson. Look, as I said before, COVID seemed to have really changed viewing habits for people, where families and kids got used to watching things at home, and getting out to the theater was not seen as necessary, and maybe parents didn't want their kids to get COVID, they didn't want to get it. And I think it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. And what I said about our experience, which is it's communal, which means people can laugh together and cry together, and kids can chase each other around our immersive floor together, our interactive LiDAR-ish floor, and where we have wearable technology. We have bracelets that light up where you can do the wave. I don't know if anyone has been to music shows where you've seen that. It's kind of interesting. So I don't know if that will bring people back to movie theaters, but I think it'll give the communal experience again, where people can come and be entertained together, as opposed to just sitting in their den and watching something. So there is the hope that there will be some of that. There's also the possibility that this will become the new movie theater. And we don't really know, because this medium is in its infancy. And we can't really predict the future. And I think if anyone had said 3 years ago that the kind of movies that I make, movies for adults, would be failing so miserably at the box office, as opposed to superhero movies, which continue to flourish with the young kids, I think people would have said you're crazy. But here we are, so let's try something new.
Massimiliano, vorresti rispondere? Stai ancora con noi?
Sì, sono ancora con voi. La domanda è un po' particolare perché sono due media per me completamente differenti.
Mm-hmm.
Sì, ma infatti
forse il cinema
se ci può essere un punto d'incontro.
Guarda, ti faccio un esempio.
Okay, I'm trying to say that he said the question is very particular for me because I think that these two media are completely different from each other. And Angela said, well, is there a possibility of and sort of amalgamate point of meeting point between the two.
In fondo quello che sta facendo
Massimiliano, non ti sentiamo,
Disney è
aspetta.
un po' portare il cinema dentro. Non mi sentite?
Sì, va bene ora.
Ok.
Ok, no, ho capito.
La scommessa che sta facendo Miles è portare un po' di cinema dentro l'arte immersiva, no? Prendere le animazioni e modificarle per farle diventare immersive, cosa per me difficilissima.
Yeah, so what Miles is doing is that he is actually bringing cinema in the immersive art and the animation in cinema in the immersive art, and I think this is a very, very difficult thing for me.
Nel 2000 io ho fatto un esperimento, ho fatto una cosa che si chiamava la felliniana.
In 2000 I did an experiment. It was called La Felliniana, inspired by Fellini, obviously.
Esattamente. E ho preso, ho raccontato la storia di Fellini attraverso i suoi film, ma la cosa difficile esattamente è fare in modo che questa esperienza diventi immersiva, perché il cinema, a differenza dell'arte immersiva, sei seduto e guardi uno schermo. Per me nell'arte immersiva, al di là del Covid, che non ce l'ha permesso, è movimento nello spazio e quindi le persone montano di nuovo il lavoro secondo la loro esperienza di visione, secondo come si muovono nello spazio. Quindi sono proprio due media completamente differenti.
Posso fare una domanda? Scusa. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. We forgot.
This show was about Fellini's life, and it was really difficult for me to build up that. So I think that the way that cinema builds a story and immersive builds a story is completely different. Now, there was COVID, so people were not allowed to walk around, but the objective of the immersive show is that people can walk around and have a different experience from every point they stand or they walk from, which is completely different experience from the movie theater, from cinema.
Voi, se qualcuno di voi ha visto una delle mie installazioni negli Stati Uniti, avrà visto che in ogni location ci sono degli oggetti che interrompono la visione. Degli specchi io in questo caso ho messo.
So if some of you were at either of one of my shows in the United States, you could see that there are some objects in the middle of the space. In some cases, in this case, I put some mirrors there.
L'esperienza mi dice che se ci sono delle cose che interrompono uno schermo, le persone si devono spostare per vedere il contenuto che non si vede dietro lo schermo, quindi sono costrette a fare un movimento.
So this because the experience tells me that people are forced to move from point to point if they don't see something, and so these objects are purposely there because people are forced to move to watch what they don't see from a certain perspective.
Prima del Covid tu potevi entrare in un'installazione immersiva e starci anche 3 ore.
Yeah, before COVID you could come inside an installation, like an immersive show, and you could stay there for 3 hours, easily.
C'è stata una signora che a Bois de Provence c'è stata dalla mattina alle 9 fino alle 6 di sera, tutto il giorno, ha visto lo spettacolo 10 volte.
There is a lady in Provence, Bois de Provence, that was there for 10 hours. So she was there from 9 in the morning to 10 in the afternoon. I mean, he saw the show 10 times.
E lei, muovendosi nello spazio, ha visto 10 spettacoli differenti.
And moving through the space, she actually watched 10 different shows.
Per questo è importante quello che diceva Angela, come ce li portiamo, ma in realtà bisogna che le cose si fondano. Forse arriveremo a fare un cinema immersivo fra qualche anno, perché i costi sono elevatissimi per portare quello che tu porti in un solo schermo in 4.000 metri quadri, in 2.000 metri quadri. Ovviamente diventa un po' oneroso.
So what Angela is suggesting is very important, it's crucial, but it takes time. Perhaps at some point we can bring cinema into the immersive show. But right now it's very expensive because you have to bring a lot of images in like 4 walls. So right now it's hard in terms of how much money it costs.
Can I make an observation? Sorry, ciao, Massimiliano. Thank you, Angela. That was a very interesting question, and I just want to maybe tie it to something that Miles talked about, and Massimiliano is referring to it constantly because you're working with a narrative. You were trying to tell a story. And I think the bigger question here is, does it need to have a narrative? Do these experiences need to have a narrative? Perché Massimiliano, your favorite exhibition, which is to say that we as Alice's are traveling in this through, doesn't necessarily have a narrative. We are creating the narrative as we are going through that space. So if you think about that, then the question of cinema, or the question of bringing cinema into this, it is two different kind of mediums. But as far as narrative goes, Massimiliano and Sandro too, do you feel like there has to be a narrative to make these experiences work? Does it have to have a story? In the sense that I think in Miles' case, he had to do it that way because it's about, in a way, history of this great company's work, I guess, in a way. So, but you're telling a story through it. But what do you think about that idea of narrative? Does it need to be a narrative there?
So è necessario avere una storia, una narrazione all'interno di questi spettacoli immersivi. Nel caso di Miles forse sì, perché ha dovuto raccontare la storia di 60 anni di storia di Disney, ma nel vostro caso è importante che ci sia una storia, una narrazione, oppure no?
Posso dire qualcosa? I can say something. I don't think that is a crucial element because, again, the protagonist, the story is the experience that you have in the space. My personal experience in creating, again, on a smaller scale, immersive installation is that sometimes when we go to abstraction, it is easier because, again, we give more point of entry to an audience than if you give a straightforward storytelling, which I've never done, by the way. But in bits and pieces, again, with those experiences with the students, there was some little stories, mini stories, but always open to the audience to interpret and to imagine, to give their own layers. So immersive as experience so that the audience feels they are there, they are feeling, they are in the space, but open in terms of narrative. That would be my take.
I love that, what you said, point of entry. I'd like to maybe, if you can just mention that to Massimiliano, if you can comment on that, what he thinks about that idea of designing the experience so there's multiple points of entry for the audience. Massimiliano, non so se...
Sì, ci sono molteplici punti di vista, naturalmente. Lui dice che le storie ci sono spesso, ma non sono fondamentali, non sono importanti, perché in realtà sono storie aperte che possono essere trasformate. Giusto, Sandro? Spero che...
Giustissimo.
Infatti la cosa interessante è che il sottotesto di un lavoro è sempre una storia per me. Io racconto sempre una storia, ma io so perfettamente che la storia che racconto, ogni persona che la guarda e vive, per questo è un'esperienza immersiva emozionale, la trasforma come vuole. Io ho avuto centinaia di call con persone che mi hanno chiesto: ma Van Gogh, perché hai fatto questo, perché hai fatto quello? E hanno visto delle cose che io non so, lo sanno solo loro. Questo è geniale. In effetti è fondamentale la storia per me. Io senza storia non riesco a lavorare, ma so perfettamente che questa storia è la mia storia, non la storia del pubblico.
So there is a narrative. It's absolutely crucial for me that there is a narrative. I can't work without one. But I also know that this is my story. In fact, there are some people who called me and who told me things about my show that I didn't even know about, that I didn't even notice, because everyone lives the story in a different way. So again, there is a story, but it's open to interpretation to everyone who's living the same story.
Vi faccio un esempio, una signora di New York mi ha detto che secondo lei io ho fatto Van Gogh per i non vedenti, per gli ipovedenti, sorry.
So there was a lady in New York that told me that I did Van Gogh for people who, I don't know, who don't see. I'm sorry, I don't want to use the wrong term, but they poorly see. So they thought I did that on purpose.
Va bene, grazie ragazzi. I think I'd like to open at least 2 or 3 minutes to a question or two from the audience. I mean, we don't have a lot of time. I apologize. We were, I guess, full asking questions out here. But is there anybody that wants to maybe pose a question to the panel, to anybody in particular on the panel? There's one right there.
Congratulations, fantastic panel, and really intrigued with the Disney show, and I love the idea that you're celebrating the artists, because I think there's a lot of young people these days who actually don't know where art comes from. They think just turn on the, And then I really am worried, because I think the theater problem is not about whether it's immersive or you've got whatever going on in the theater. I think it's with society, because I'm a tennis player, and at my tennis club, you're not allowed to use your cell phone. Do you know how difficult it is for people to, these are mature adults, to follow that rule? And I think we're just so distracted. We're either so busy or there's some emergency that carving that time out. So, it almost seems a societal problem and nothing to do with the theater. The films are fabulous and so much better in a theater. So you can solve that. I like Everyman Theatre in London. They're smaller, that kind of thing. So
we're going to need an hour to answer your existential question about how cell phones are a narcotic in society right now, and that most of our kids want to be influencers. So that could be in the parking lot afterwards. But maybe you should change clubs.
There's a question in the back.
I have a comment directed to you mentioned that in his exhibit.
If you can wait for just, there we go.
Thank you. Massimiliano mentioned that in his Alice exhibit at University Alice, and if he wanted to show Alice, and I know he said that we are Alice walking through it interactively, but if he wanted to point out that we are Alice, perhaps he could have a exhibit where we pass by an interactive mirror and we see Alice instead of ourselves. And just a suggestion.
Interesting
idea. Ti ha dato un consiglio, sì, ti ha dato un consiglio, ha detto, perché tu hai spiegato che noi non vediamo Alice perché noi siamo Alice. Allora lui ha detto, magari in uno spettacolo potresti mettere uno specchio in cui vediamo Alice, nel senso che noi ci rivediamo specchiati.
Sì, infatti nei miei spettacoli ci sono
un suggerimento.
Sì, nei miei spettacoli ci sono gli specchi proprio perché uno si possa vedere dentro il lavoro. Esattamente è un terzo punto di vista.
Yeah, in my shows there are mirrors exactly so people can watch themselves. It's like a even third point of view. That's true. Actually, it happens.
Miles, yeah.
If anybody wants to see Alice, she's in my show. No mirrors.
The real Alice, no. the Disney Alice. Awesome. Wow, I think we run out of time here, but maybe is there another little question from somebody? There's one little question over there, hopefully, right there. Yeah, he'll be selling tickets in the back at a discount, I think 10, 20%. What was the amount? Say,
in the parking lot again.
In the parking lot, out of his trunk.
So my question is about the interdisciplinary nature of the things that you're doing and how you pull from each of those areas in order to enrich what you're trying to accomplish. And I suppose this question is for the entire panel. So when we talk about immersive art, I feel like that can mean a lot of things. And I love the idea that cinema and theater, like, they collide with this. So the idea that a place where you traditionally see film, you know, it's a modulation from, or a transition from a theater, which is also a place where you have a communal experience, and more people are moving towards immersive art aspects in theater. But we also have things that are even more, I want to say, lowbrow, with storytelling in the form of an immersive experience where you have to get yourself out of a room, or you're exploring a city and you're following clues as part of a group experience, and there's a storyline that goes with that, and it's inherently immersive because you are the protagonist moving through this city. But in particular, when we're thinking about combining, so all of that was to say that I love that immersive art, if you start looking for it, appears in all different locations. And because of that, there's a lot of places to draw from and a lot to learn from. When we're starting to pull from the education aspect, with things like the illustration and learning about where art comes from, now I feel like we're pulling from museum sciences and science communication, while also leaning on storytelling and entertainment and art. And to what degree do you feel like you have stood on the shoulders of giants to pull from their lessons and learn from their lessons about what works for kids? Oh, and even like rides at Disneyland, what an immersive experience that is. So that's arguably immersive art as well, with storytelling happening in the form of all the things that are happening around you from beginning to end. So Imaginariums, leaning on standing on the shoulders of those giants. Imagineers.
So you're bringing up a lot of great questions. It's like a lot of different questions together. But I think the idea of an immersive experience, as you said, it's all around us, really. I mean, this is an immersive experience, if you wanted to call it that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel immersed right now, standing up here with my somebody I respected for a long time I never really met.
Right. So the question comes down to how much do you lean on the people who are already working in these immersive experiences for a variety of different ways with a variety of different goals in order to reach your own goals?
Right on, yeah. So does anybody want to speak to that? I kind of like the idea of how a spin on that. That question there is great too. I'm thinking, you know, that art, what are we doing with these immersive experiences that enhances, you know, as Massimiliano put it, quelli che non vedono, quelli che non possono vedere, those who have not, you know, don't understand or haven't seen Van Gogh, don't appreciate Van Gogh, but somehow he creates an experience of Van Gogh that even if you don't understand it, and even if you don't, you kind of get it, because you're immersed in it. It's kind of leaning on what you're asking, I believe, but along with the...
Well, we are standing on the shoulders, just as Massimiliano stood on the shoulders of Van Gogh, we now stand on his shoulders as an innovator in the medium, and obviously the 100 years of Disney animators, performers, singers, and all of that. So, you know, it's just like building materials. It's like a sculptor uses clay, like those are the materials. So, as I said, on this continuum of contemplative art from Deepak Chopra through visual arts and what Massimiliano does to what we are now doing, it can go in any one of a number of directions. But there will always be source material, there will always be inspiration, there will always be elements that you use to put it together to make it interesting. And I think there's, at this early stage in the development, evolution of the medium, there's really no defining it, there's only exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to maybe bring Sandro back just for a little bit. Sandro, if you're there, just because I know you've done installations, and I'm not sure what your name is, but to your point, you know, he takes whatever that environment is and he works with it. And especially was describing that experience he had with kids, looking at their environment, looking at their neighborhood, looking at their location, and creating an immersive experience for others through that. Sandro, do you, as far as your experimental installations and so on, can you relate to what Miles also said, just drawing on all these different kind of resources, I guess, in a way?
Yes, absolutely. And the question was also very interesting. And I thought that reminded me an ongoing question in terms of immersive. What makes something immersive? What other layers we can bring on? And when I think about it, I think about our five senses. And something that is primarily for me, because I'm vision-based, is to be in the dark with a big vision. But then again, what if you cannot see? So then sound is terribly important. It made a huge difference when it came in cinema, right? We went from silent and we thought, oh, we cannot have sound. But when we had sound, we cannot, it's like such a 50% of a movie picture. And now we have also touch. So there are elements in the space that we could touch. And Tony, just in a conversation with you before this panel, I thought you mentioned something about what if we can have a smell? What if we can bring the audience? So in other words, it's almost like we're trying to reach a synesthesia, a moment where we have multiple senses engaged. Our presence in the space, the vision, the sound, the touch, and maybe the smell one day. And all this creates something special, something that taps into your memory, your emotion, your engagement. That's what I think. So in briefly answering the question, how do you bring these different experts together? Again, in my case, what I would do when it comes to sound, definitely I have to consult with the sound artist, with the musicians, with the composers. When it comes to architecture and moving in the space, same thing. I go to set design, I go to theater people. The choreography aspect of it that Massimiliano was talking about is equally important. Speaking of projection, I'm a filmmaker. There is something very important in there, animation, the creativity. So all this plays together.
Tony, very fascinating. I think that we had to add a couple of hours of this panel, but not today.
Need up the lavazza.
Exactly, we need some lavazza.
Bring on the
So
espresso.
I think that, first of all, thanks, Miles, for coming down to Pinewood Studios.
Thank you.
I know that you are super, super busy with the Disney Immersive Experience. Is going to probably come to Toronto opening December 21st.
2 weeks we open.
Okay, so
December
again,
21st.
Congratulations, again, incredible achievement. And thanks, of course, to Massimiliano. We have seen Van Gogh here in Toronto.
Thank
you. We are following you everywhere now, every time. And we can't wait for the next. And of course, for us, Sandro, we had a panel discussion last year that was the future of public screening. And this is probably the continuation in some way of that panel last year. We'll see what is going to be next year panel discussion, but I feel that this panel revealed a little bit what could be the future of public screenings. We unveiled probably a little bit what the scenario of the next few years. Probably we had to rebuild the entire theaters not in North America, but all over the world. Big investments, but probably it's the time that the industry will do these big investments. So thanks again, of course, Tony Tarantini, a master in moderating this kind of panel discussion. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I also want to thank ICE Toronto, our partner in the Industry Days, and of course SIRT that has put together all these incredible stages for us. But I would like to really have an incredible applause to the technicians that helped us to create a sort of a TV program. It's not a conference, but it's a TV program, starting of course with my partner David Dexter. Come joining me today and all your team that, as usual, is an incredible team and help us in everything to amalgamate and doing a co-production between Italy and Canada for this conference. And of course, I'd like to ask to send applause to Mara Cataldi, Donatella Zanon, Antonio Burgio, Tony Da Silva, Natalie Quercia, and many, many volunteers that are with us, and Benedetta Marassi from ICE that co-organize with us this incredible conference. Sari, you were here before, and ANICA, Telefilm Canada, Ontario Creates, the City of Toronto, Rogers Communications, Moira Romano with Castle Point Numa, and finally thank you, of course, the sponsor for the lunch, of course, that we had here for, unfortunately, the people online, you couldn't enjoy Tutto Gourmet that offered us an incredible breakfast and lunch. David, I think that you should be with me to say the final probably goodbye to the next edition of the Industry Days.
No, absolutely, and reiterate my thanks for everybody, and especially it's nice to have a lot of warm bodies here in seeing and conversing in that. And one of my big points is doesn't stop here, right? It's continue the conversation. You met a lot of exciting people over the last 2 days, and continue that conversation because this is an ongoing over the year. And also reach out, connect with social, share your stories, share your ideas, and there's such a great support system out there, both from different industry partners, but also entities like us.
For sure. And we are working together for next Industry Day that is not going to be at SIRT, because before SIRT there is Venice Film Festival. So we are working, planning a delegation of Canadians going overseas, and we will do it together this time.
As we always say, we're continuing to grow and expand our presence, and that's the great thing.
Thank you.
And
again, a big applause to everybody here that stayed with us. And we will continue with the B2B next week, and again, it's a continuation, as you said, David.
Absolutely.
Again, goodbye.
Thank you.
After 2 days, I think that we need some sleep.
Until tomorrow morning.
Goodbye.